with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Oh, what a big man you are. Hey, let me buy you a pack of gum. I'll show you how to chew it. Ooh.
And Justin Svoboda.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Two guys from Chicago talking movies.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 15 of the Yumper and Swole at the Show podcast, presented by the Tank Love Network. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tom Garcia, aka Yumper, and I'm with my other co-host, Justin Svoboda. What's up, Swole?
Yumpito, how are you, buddy?
I'm good, my friend.
Today was a good football day.
If you call watching that horrible game,
it was good. It was a weekend for me.
Anxiety. I watched that. Was horrible. But we'll talk about that, I guess, with the guys, our guests today. But we got an action-packed show for you today, a long show. We got everything that our fans actually voted on this one, Swole.
Yeah, so we put a poll out there, and they wanted to talk. This was the topic that they chose, and we're really excited because it's kind of right up my alley. Because I'm an idiot, and these movies are for idiots. So I'm excited to talk about them.
Yep, so am I. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into it, Swole.
Yeah,
let's pop this up. All right, so we usually begin with our Twitter question. So, Swole, you want to get into that?
Yeah, so our Twitter question was, what was an underrated song or banger on a soundtrack that didn't get enough love? And I chose, this was mine, was the Kendrick Lamar track from the Black Panther soundtrack, All the Stars. And we had our usual suspects of people replying. Someone named Gertie Garcia, I never heard of her before.
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
She had my favorite choice. It was 6 Underground by the Sneaker Pimps, which is from Can't Hardly Wait, one of my favorite movies. So I was really, really impressed when that showed up in our Twitter responses. We had our boy Chirizi, or what did we call him earlier today? We referred to him as something.
I don't know what you referred to him.
It was Chorksy.
Chorksy?
Chorksy is what he was referred to on Twitter. Chorksy said Guns N' Roses' Sympathy for the Devil from the Interview with the Vampire soundtrack. And then our boy Shankster went with some 9 Inch Nails, Guilty from the 7 soundtrack. I have a nephew. He's 18, and I'm kind of introducing him to all these movies that I love. And he texted me the other night. It was like midnight, and I was up for some reason. So if it was midnight here, it means it was 1 o'clock in Fort Myers, Florida, where he's at. He was like, yo, I just watched 7, and that movie was absolutely average. I did not like it, and I wanted to disown him very, very much when he said that. I guess maybe the shock value is not there for kids these days, but 7 is anything but underrated. But yeah, that was our Twitter question of the week.
Yeah, people got different tastes, man. We're gonna find that out later.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's get into our next segment. Let's go keep rolling along into what we were watching. I can start off with mine. So I actually had a inclination to watch The Professional. I saw it maybe 15 years ago. Very beautifully shot movie. Gary Oldman is crazy as a character in there. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you watching it. But watching it now, older and having kids, it's very creepy. Like, very creepy. And then reading about, the background of the director who actually had a relationship with a 15-year-old girl, and then you could kind of see this with he implies in this movie. It's just very, very creepy. It's a lot of action, a lot of but a lot of subtle like creepiness in it. So I don't think it holds up too well today. But Gary Oldman just kills it in his role as a psychopath. Have you ever seen those Professionals, Will?
Yeah, I remember my cousin Mark was the one that introduced me to The Professional, and I remember liking it at the time, but I was like 15 and I didn't realize, the backstory on some of this stuff. It was also one of my first introductions to Natalie Portman. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I haven't seen it in years, so I don't know how it holds up.
Yeah, she's awesome in the movie. It's just the undertones of everything is kind of weird. And the person who plays Leon, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. It's a French actor. He's awesome. He's in I think the Godzilla remake with Matthew Broderick, which is horrible. But he does a great job. He plays as Leon as a kind of a slow guy, but it's still creepy undertones. So why don't you tell me about one of the movies you watched?
Yeah. So the other night I was just wanted to hang out with my wife, and she suggested this movie Meet Cute on Peacock with Pete Davidson and Kaylee Coco, and it was absolutely one of the most bizarre, strangest experience I've ever had in a movie. It was like a suicidal version of Groundhog Day, like if that makes any sense. It was not the romantic comedy that I was expecting it to be. Very, very bizarre. She keeps living the same day over and over again. The day that she tried to kill herself, but she meets Pete Davidson. Very, very strange movie. Not what the advertisements make it out to be. So that was one of the movies I watched.
Yeah, and then another movie we both watched actually was the Clerks 3 viewing in theaters, which I released a small little spoiler-free review of it, just to, basic summary of it. I thought it was very good. I went in expecting kind of like the Jay and Silent Bob reboot treatment, to where it's gonna show a lot of nostalgia and not be as good as a hold up to the previous installments. But this movie, I think, it actually surpassed. I think it surpassed Clerks 2, in my opinion. I know we might disagree about that, but I think it's very, very good and well written, and it kind of like really puts forward Kevin Smith's story and how he wanted to, have this trilogy end, basically. Very, very good. What do you think about it?
I like Clerks 3. It was enjoyable. It was very, very much a biography pick for Kevin Smith, dealing with his own issues. I think some of these characters have run their course, but they've been around for, 20 something years now. But I think it was like, if you're a fan of the View Askew universe, I think it's enjoyable. Way better than Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Yeah, I think they kind of like point that out in the movie too, how like the characters are kind of done. They're not. I mean, in the trailer, they even compare Jay and Silent Bob to R2D2 and C3PO. That they're just characters. Their first movie was great, but they're just characters now, part of the franchise.
Yeah.
But what about you? What was your second movie you watched?
The second movie I watched was this horror movie, X, and I really, really enjoyed it. Jenny Ortega was in it. She was in Scream 5. Brittany Snow from Pitch Perfect, and Kid Cudi was in it. And it really was a combination of like Boogie Nights and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They leave to go film this adult movie on a farm in outside of Houston, and all kinds of crazy shit happens. I highly recommend it. There's a prequel out now called Pearl, and there's supposed to be a third part of the trilogy coming out at some point later in the year. So check this movie out if you get a chance.
Yeah, especially since Halloween's coming up, I might actually check this one out.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are what we watched this week. Let us know what you watched this week. Hit us up at Yumper and Swole on Twitter, or check us out at taintedglove.com to read all the reviews, blogs, and whatever nonsense we got up there. But let's move on to our segment. So as you know, we have a defensive segment where somebody defends a movie that they love, which other people may not love. So this week's guest, Will, you want to introduce him?
Yeah, this is our brother, our boy Fizz. He's not going to be singing American Pie for us like he is in this picture, but we're very, very much excited to have him on the show again. We haven't had our boys on since the Oscar episode, our second episode. So welcome to the show, Fizz.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on, and thanks for sharing that amazing picture of me with my shirt off where I was lip syncing to American Pie while in Palm Springs on the 4th of July.
You would do the same for any of us. So
absolutely.
And completely sunburnt.
Yeah, oh, absolutely sunburnt. Like so bad too. And also a little dandruff in the top there, part of my loaf too. But that's okay. Yeah, Dog took many zoomed in pictures of that. So
Oh man.
Very good. Very good. Yeah.
So Fitz, I'm sorry, Swell, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yep.
So usually what we do when we have a guest on, we usually ask them a couple questions. We'll throw some questions at you. So fire away, Swell.
Yeah, Fizz, I don't know if we've ever asked you these questions, so I'm very, very excited to see what the answer is.
The answer is the test came back negative.
That's
negative. So we're good there.
The cream is sold out. Sorry. We'll have to get it from another Walgreens, Fizz. No, Fizz. What movie do you put on when you are under the weather or sick or down?
Sometimes it depends. Again, it depends on what time of year too. If it's cold outside and it's more gloomy out, I kind of stick with some darker stuff. And I'll throw on, more of a gangster crime, a lot of the real crime stuff during those types of things. It's so strange to me, but you actually, the way I guess I really haven't thought about that question before, but gangster movies tend to be like that kind of comfort for me. I could sleep with them on. I could take naps with them on and have my eyes closed. And I actually do this at night. I actually throw on, if I can't sleep, I'll throw on a documentary, a true crime documentary about usually a true crime film. And I'll listen to it while I'm falling asleep. But I think that's probably in the winter. And then in the summer, spring, I mean, my go-to, if I'm feeling like shit, is either Step Brothers or The Natural. And that's because it's a different time kind of season. And it's more jovial. You go outside and your face melts because the sun's out. So it depends on the season. But those are my go-tos, I guess, when I'm feeling like sheesh.
Absolutely. I love that. Step Brothers could be almost anyone's. For me, it's a toss-up between that and Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Mm-hmm. So I love that you said that. Fizz, what movie theater did you grow up going to? Do you remember going to as a kid?
So depending on where I lived growing up, because when I was a younger child, I lived here in Vegas again when my parents lived here the first time. And so that was always the Cinedome 6 in Henderson. And that was a giant, if you guys don't know about the architecture out here in the West at the time in the 80s, they had these giant, they were like igloo looking buildings. They were like octagons almost. And they built this theater that had 8 or 6 of these octagon looking buildings for a movie theater. So I remember seeing, I saw Top Gun there. I saw Rocky 3 and, I saw, and Rocky 4. I saw Howard the Duck there and then snuck into, we saw Ghostbusters 2, I believe, and then snuck into Howard the Duck. And I thought I was going to go to prison because I snuck into a movie and I had never done that before with my aunt and my sister. And then back in Chicago, though, it was always Stratford Square or Bloomingdale Court. Those were the two. And occasionally I'd hop on out to I don't know what it's called now, but it was the one Schaumburg place had a pretty good one too.
Yeah, Streets of Woodfield. That's where we had our Top Gun event.
That's where Schindler's List date night happened. So that was a good one. But yeah, those are, it depended. But and here in Vegas too, like when I would come visit, even when I was older, it was Red Rock movie theaters, which don't exist anymore. It's on Charleston. It's actually right near Bonanza, ironically enough. I saw Jaws 3D there with my best friend Chooch. And Chooch kept taking his glasses off because he was the arms floating. He was constantly taking it off because the 3D was freaking him out. But it was raining outside when we saw it too. So everybody was afraid to get anywhere near puddles because we were afraid like a fucking shark somehow was going to get us, which was weird because it's a puddle. But I just remember it was raining. I saw Back to the Future at that theater with my Mima. Actually, I remember that too.
So there are multiple theaters that you remember going to growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the first film experience I ever had was actually Empire Strikes Back in Mississippi when my parents were still in college. My dad was in seminary, and his best friends that there was a couple that didn't have kids, and so they used to basically borrow me. I was like their token kid, and they were great. Arnold and Kathy were like the best. Like I literally put a baseball, but one of those mini bats between his toes one time, and then ripped it, just yanked it. Like I caused them a lot of physical pain. At their wedding, I was actually the ring boy, and I was at some point apparently pulling pins out of the pillow and sticking them into his feet during the prayer. Lots of stuff. And they took me to see Empire Strikes Back. So my first vivid moment of a film actually wasn't with my parents or my family. It was actually with Arnold and Kathy, and they took me to Empire Strikes Back. I would say 1979. And I still remember to this day Arnold, because he was a big galoot. He was like 6'6", carrying me around through the chaos. And it looks, when you see those videos of like Star Wars, openings and stuff back, when you see some of the documentaries, it does have that feel. I have that part of that memory too, where just everybody was outside and everyone's wearing their short shorts and their tank tops and they're really bright colored, ring bright colors around their tank tops and the short shorts that were really, really awkward, especially then your socks pulled up to your knees and, having rings at the top of the socks, which I still wear now to this day. But that's my first experience. And it's you can almost channel your great moments of what theater you were seeing too. Like it comes in eras. I know that in college it was always either the theater there on Big Timber in Elgin, because I was at Judson University, or Lake in the Hills. And then of course Barrington 30 was always a go-to. And then the Barrington Dollar Theater, that was high school. I think I saw Ace Ventura like 45 times there. I took every girl that I was in love with to go see Three Musketeers at that Dollar Theater because I thought maybe that would work. And just be more in the friend zone.
My first job ever at AMC South Barrington. And then the place where I was probably the biggest degenerate was the Square, Barrington Square. You get some Garibaldi's pizza and you go to Barrington Square.
Absolutely, got to go Parabaldi's. 100% go to Parabaldi's.
That's funny.
That was a start. That was always.
We got one more question, Fids.
Mhm.
What movie do you remember going to see when your parents dropped you off at the theater, like when you were old enough to hang out by yourself with some buddies?
Batman, 100%. Batman. Here, great story on this too. When it came out, obviously, this is that we knew that there was going to be lines. You remember that all the media push and everything was that there was lines out the door around the block. You're never going to get tickets. Opening day, right? My parents and I'm like, I want to go see Batman. I really want to see it. My parents are like, well, no, it's going to be too crowded. There's no chance you're going to get a ticket. This is obviously before you could buy, Fandango and all the, the beginning of the online purchase of tickets. So you had to wait in line to get your ticket. And so I actually literally, I'm a sixth grader, I think, at this point. I'm a smart little sixth grader. And I tell them, I go, look, I'll make you a deal, Mom and Dad. If we drive by the movie theater, and I gave them the time because I had the newspaper, and I wanted to go. I told them to go. I wanted to go there immediately after the start time of the previous movie. So the Batman at like 1, I said, let's get there at 1 because I figured that, or like 1, I was like 1:15. So it was like 15 minutes after they let in. I told them that there would be no line. I made a bet. My parents were like, okay, Kevin, sure. I go, here's the bet. If this happens, you're buying me and another ticket, and you're going to go pick up this girl I have a crush on. Her name's Karma, and you're going to go pick up Karma, and we're going to go see Batman. And they're like, all right, fine, stupid. And they drive by the theater, nobody there. And my dad, to this day, still tells this story. He's like, well, all right, well, Kevin's going on his first date in 6th grade. There we go. I won the bet. And so we went and obviously purchased a ticket. And I actually took Karma later on to see Oliver and Company a couple of weeks later. And I went to go get M&Ms for us. And by the time I'd come back, this is so middle school or 6th grade, some guy that had a crush on her walked up to her and asked her to go out with him.
Man,
just walked up and said, will you go out with me? And
fucking Oliver and Company.
I came back and fucking Oliver and Company. And she's holding hands with this jackass. And I'm like, I just bought you M&Ms. What is going on here? So karma was bad to me. I had bad karma at that point.
Well, those are the 3 questions that we ask every one of our guests. Thanks for sharing. Now, for what Yumper refers to as the meat and potatoes of the segment.
Let's listen in.
It's in a cloud. It's in a cloud.
OJ! It's in a cloud!
2022's Nope, directed by Jordan Peele. Now, Fids, tell me why you are going to defend Nope.
I will defend Nope because I believe that it is a quality piece of cinematic filmmaking, technically, as well as depth-wise and allegorically, if that's even a word. The special meanings behind everything. I appreciated, a lot of people look at this film, and I know I've heard this from a lot of people that when they saw this film, they started thinking Steven Spielberg. But the irony of that is, and you could probably say M. Night Shyamalan probably in that as well. But the ironic part is, this isn't like a Spielberg-esque move. This actually is a Alfred Hitchcockian film. It is very much made in the same design as Alfred Hitchcock. And it goes deeper into the film. And for film lovers, and especially someone that's a huge fan of Hitchcock, Steven Spielberg obviously is the reason why I love film. I can 100% say that Spielberg is the inspiration for my love of film. And when you have these types of, it's not just about the plot. The plot, I do believe, and I know you and I disagree on this, I thought the plot was actually very deep. I thought that it brought out, when you look at the plot itself, it's transfixed. You've got multiple types of narratives. One, you've got obviously the side story with the chimp, and then you have the actual story of how the Black experience and the contributions in Hollywood have been basically muddied and muffled since its inception. The first film, in essence, was a Black man riding a horse being filmed, and since the beginning, we've constantly whitewashed the history of that culture and that community as screens and cinematic films have go on. And now even to this day, and that's the wonderful part about the Black Producers Initiative and whatnot that Michael B. Jordan has been rolling out in Peele and a lot of the Black directors in Hollywood, like Ryan Coogler. It's starting to kind of push away from that. But this film really does capture the how everybody is always so quick to just take somebody else's idea that's not theirs, and the contributions they have. Everyone wants their part. Everyone wants their little their pound of flesh, if you will. And then, of course, how the Black experience as directors. And again, this film is not. I think a lot of people came into this film thinking it's going to be a horror film. Us, Get Out. These are different films. It's not even a science fiction film. This film is 100% an allegory. It's a metaphor for the Black experience in cinema since the beginning, and how the great spectacle of film has constantly, despite this wide, giant canvas, has always constantly ignored the contributions of those that helped create what we have today, which is fantastic. He doesn't try and get preachy. He doesn't get, the word is didactic. He doesn't get didactic. He doesn't get preachy. He lays it out there in a way that you gotta kind of dig a little bit. And I think when you have a film that makes you go back and read comments and interviews about purpose and intent, I think it really does. It's part of the great part of movie going experiences. And I thought this was a very good summer movie going experience with, I think, a lot more depth than just a cloud with a bunch of flags dangling, stuck in its taint, if you will, because that's like it's like when a dog eats a sock or something, or strings, and they got like the string and they try and poop and the string comes out. That's what every time I see that flag, that's what I'm thinking of with the cloud. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about, kind of. But Danny Kaluuya, he plays, he's great. The dude is, he speaks volumes with his physical performances, his eyes. And if you've seen the film, again, there's a scene in the barn, and the title of this film is actually said. If you're an audience member, you say it yourself, and then he says it, because there's something weird that starts quirky happening. And it turns out, it's again these types of cinematic experiences where you kind of pull the rug out from the audience for a second and force them to kind of like waddle in a little bit of discomfort, and then you just kind of like you bring them back in. And that scene was great. But I felt that this was a piece of technical filmmaking from a probably one of the better directors alive today, and writers, and it completes his, I guess, if you want to call it the trilogy. But I think that the biggest disappointment for a lot of people was the expectation that they had coming in. I think that they were thinking it was going to be one thing and it was something else. And that also plays a part in how I think people look at the plot. But I really do. I thought that this idea about the power of cinema and how it can pull from you or even cover over you. And again, there's also the little jokes in this. And I know that I'm probably talking way too much. I'm going to let Yumper's probably going to try and destroy my argument here in a second. But, without power, without electricity, they bring in a dude that films on an analog IMAX camera system. And this film was shot specifically in IMAX. And so it's kind of like 6 degrees of camera tech as well. And so for people that work in the industry, a lot of giggles with some of the technology they were using, because it's like, it's kind of like a baseball player using one of those gloves back in, like one of those 1920s gloves, right? Those 3-finger gloves, and someone playing in a Major League Baseball game with that. That's kind of what it felt like at one point. And so there's a lot of shout outs there too. And there's a lot of inter-industry jokes too that I think that fly for certain people. And I think that's why I think people within the industry liked this film so much, is that it kind of spoke to them. And it doesn't speak as much maybe to an outsider as much as it maybe could have. And I think that's probably the biggest complaint that I've seen, is that it sometimes I think it's kind of like telling an inside joke. If your audience doesn't get the inside joke, they don't have that context, they're not going to be able to enjoy it. So, but it finds that way though. That's just that inflatable balloon cowboy is like perfect. It's like classic Hollywood. Like, I don't know. It felt like a throwback to a Hitchcockian film.
Jump, how do you feel about this movie?
I'm going to respectfully disagree. I don't think this movie is horrible. I've told you that. I just don't think it is as enjoyable as it's, talked about within critics and within other moviegoers. I've gone with people that are, some of them in the industry and some of them, suspense. They love, the aspect of a horror movie, or a suspenseful movie. But I've also gone with people who are big Jordan Peele fans. I went with my brother, huge Jordan Peele fan. Wrote about Jordan Peele for his thesis on horror in a small town setting, basically saying how he loves how Jordan Peele uses allegories, how he puts everything in society, how he does with cultural aspects of everything, which is great. I think when you mentioned about the Black experience in film, although that is shown in this movie, I think it could have been shown more and more prevalent. I think the first part of the movie is basically when they show the aspect of, the speech about how his great-grandfather was the first African-American shot on film and was one of the first horse wranglers, was great, but they never really elaborate on that. You have Keith David, who was an excellent actor, and he's basically wasted within the first 15 minutes of the movie. You have Michael Wincott, who is a great actor, who's basically in the movie for 20 minutes. He acts strange. You don't know why he does certain things or certain aspects of why he's doing these things, especially when there's a scene where he says that they don't deserve something that should have been elaborated on. That's what was frustrating with me. I didn't go into this movie expecting it to be scary. Although this movie is marketed, as you can see in that poster, a new terror from the mind of an Academy Award winner. So that's another thing too. I mean, I understand you're saying that you people are going with different expectations, but they're marketing it as a scary movie. I went in this thinking as a way that Jordan Peele is going to show something with society, and he does have that in here with the treatment of animals and how animals in how even because it's going deeper than that, how mankind or humans think they can control animalistic instincts, how people are just basically pushed out of the way, who are even looked upon for people of color, people who actually help out make films what they are. The people who don't get enough respect, the people who are pushed to the side, who are just there. Just the way OJ was treated when he was on the film set. He was just looked at as the guy who had the horse. And then when the horse didn't act the way he wanted, they took him off and put a plastic one, and how you're replaceable. I love that aspect. But the Daniel Kaluuya character, I felt like he was very lacking. He was in that clip I played. He's like, like it was very, very like he felt like he didn't want to be there, and that's the aspect I was getting. Like, and it's not, and like we could argue, but like the picture is shot beautifully, like beautifully shot, but it was dragging. The story with Gordy, I thought was good, but I think that story took away more from the Black experiences. What I was telling you earlier, they should cut that down a little bit to add more of how the Black experience and how culture is actually overtaken, how people take other ideas. They should have added more to that substance to that argument, which I think would have been good. And that's what made me not enjoy the movie. I think Jordan Peele gets a pass because Jordan Peele is the hot name right now. He's an excellent director, but I do get a lot of M. Night Shyamalan feelings from this because M. Night Shyamalan had The Sixth Sense, he had Unbreakable, and then he had Signs. And then what did he come out with next? Everybody was pumped for The Village, and it was bad. So I think it has that kind of hype, not to the extent where it's a bad movie as The Village, because I don't think anything is as bad as that. But I think this is not Jordan Peele's best work.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not Lady in the Water. It's not Lady in the Water bad. I mean, if you saw The Village, the first time you saw The Village, it was enjoyable until after you've seen The Village, and then once you saw the whole picture, you're like, oh, geez.
If we're talking about just the masses, it's got an 82% like refresh rate on Rotten Tomatoes. And someone that had just saw it, like I literally finished it this afternoon so we could speak about it. I think you're both right. I think the movie is absolutely visually stunning. It's gorgeous. The scenes of on the farm and the way the movie looks at night are great. And then I agree with Fidz with there are some Hitchcockian moments where he's in the barn and he takes out the camera and he's like, nope. As far as the dialogue that you're referring to, Yump, that you used in here, that's just his character. That's just the way he talked to his dad too. He's like, it's almost like Billy Bob Thornton without the what's the word I'm looking for? I want to make sure I'm PC here. Without the disabilities, Billy Bob Thornton was just, and he was just like, yep, or nope. He just spoke in one word, short sentences. But I also think that there's a lot.
You say that too. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. You say that too, and that's the perfect dynamic difference between him and his sister. That's the whole point. His sister is a mile a minute, and brother is a man of few words. Like the balance in the siblings.
His sister was loud and obnoxious. But I also agree with you, Yumper. I think there was a lot of wasted story and a lot of wasted potential where they didn't touch on things. And not everything has to be cut and dry night and day. There are some things that are best left unsaid. And that's the Hitchcockian, things are just assumed. But I would rank this 3 out of Jordan Peele's 3 in terms of enjoyability, at least. Watching the movie, looking at the movie, I think it was gorgeous. But I enjoyed Us and Get Out so much more.
Too, you mentioned in Hitchcockian thing. The big thing about Hitchcock and suspense too, and it's a really great quote from Hitchcock and how you create suspense is basically you show the audience everything. So the audience is on pins and needles in the sense that, say, for example, you have a character that's standing on a stage, and we as an audience can see that underneath that stage, there's a giant stick of dynamite with a timer that's about ready to go off in 25 seconds. And this character is standing on the stage, oblivious to it, talking about the weather. And as an audience, we watch this person and we're like, dude, get off the stage. Get out of there. And we can't. And it draws. That's the quintessential aspect of building suspense and creating suspense. That's what Hitchcockian said. Throw a stick of dynamite with a timer under the stage, show it to the audience, and let the audience curl up into a ball of terror because they're going to be completely prefixated on on what could happen when that dynamite goes off, and it creates anxiety in your audience. And I mean, this is a guy that was obviously above, before his time, but I think that this one doesn't actually do that because, we don't see what's behind the cloud generally. And so we're not shown anything, but once we know that the cloud is something, it does create that dynamite under the stage effect for us, because when you see someone looking at the cloud, the Stephen Yen's rodeo, whatever that thing is that they do at the ranch thing, that their little show, it creates, you see the cloud, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
It's like hearing Jaws' theme, oh shit, something's about to happen. Right. So it gives you that, and all of a sudden it creates it. So, I mean, but that's the Hitchcockian thing. That's how you create suspense, is you show the audience what the characters don't know, and the audience knows that bad things are going to happen. And when you have a character that's oblivious to it.
We could have this debate all night because we all love movies and we all love film. I think that we're all in agreement that the movie is absolutely beautiful. Some just took more out of the story than others did. But I think that's what movies are for. So I think
that's the beauty of subjectivity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can, in our group chat now, since
I'm right.
All four of us are here, we can put this argument to bed, right?
No, I win though. But yeah, no, I totally agree. No, but just to go back off the symbolism and like not showing the audience, that was, again, I can go back to M. Night Shyamalan's Signs. You don't see the creatures until you should catch little glimpses of it. And it's kind of in this movie too. You catch little glimpses of the cloud and what it does.
It's like the shark and Jaws too. The shark and Jaws.
Same thing. And then it makes me think of this movie from like the 40s called Cat People, which is I think it's Jacques Tourneur, I think is that directed it. But the movie, like, it talks about cat people, but it uses so many like visual and sound cues that you don't actually see them, but you hear like a bus running in that sounds like a roar. Like, I think that's like a beautiful callback and homage to good filmmaking. I think he does do that in some aspects here. I just don't think it's like one of his best movies, and that's just.
And that's the beauty of, again, that's the beauty of subjectivity. That's the beauty of being a fan of film, because everything, if you create art means something different to everybody. And I believe that Nope is probably his best piece of art of the three. I actually was not a huge fan of Us, to be honest. I absolutely, obviously, Get Out was Get Out. Where with Get Out, it was, the message was blatant, slapping you in the face like with a sneaky old fish to make sure you got the point home. Us had a little bit more of a questionable kind of, and this one buries it deep. And I think that he's starting to, I think this is almost like a great experience in watching him become a filmmaker as he grows into he's getting his sea legs now. He's learning how to tell stories. He's learning how to be a filmmaker. And I think that this is just the beginning of what we're going to see, some quality pieces of work from him. I think this is the exact opposite of M. Night Shyamalan, where Shyamalan came out with all this pub and all this, and Shyamalan's ego is very different than Peele's. I mean, look at the credits, the opening credits in a Shyamalan film. There's a reason why they are the largest. His name is always the largest CG you will see in the opening credits. Everybody else's names are normal, and then you get M. Night Shyamalan, and it takes up the entire.
Well, his name is really long too, so
that too helps you. But in big letters though, and so you got that. And I don't think Peele's filmmaking ego is that way. And I think that's the best part is I feel like he's just now he's experimenting, and I think that we're going to see more products from him in the future that are going to wow us. I think that this is just the beginning, and that's exciting. Regardless of what you think of Nope, I think that we can all agree that he is a quality filmmaker, and he, with the right plot and with the right writing and with, obviously the technical work that he does, I think he's got the capability to be a multiple Oscar winner down the line. I think that will happen one day.
I would agree with that. I don't doubt his talent, but I have to end this argument. I have a quick question for you. I have read articles where people have basically, put him on the pedestal as the greatest horror suspense director of all time. Do you agree with that?
No, not at all. And what was his response? Because he even responded to somebody when they asked that, or when they said that. What was his response? Do you remember?
My name's not John Carpenter.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, but these are like legit critics, and I'm like, his stuff is good, but he's not no Paul Thomas Anderson in terms of film.
We're not there yet. No.
Yeah, and I think it's too early for that.
Reaction of film. But this is also, again, we live in a day and age where film critics, half the shit that they review, they don't review it based on the actual product. They review it based on how they feel about the director. And that's an unfortunate byproduct of subjectivity as well, is that people are going to, I just saw a review from the movie The Whale, and it had nothing to do with the movie. It had everything to do with the social implications of a character, and that somebody laughed at a scene in the movie when he couldn't pick up his own keys, and as opposed to ignoring the art form of the film The Whale, which is getting absolutely fantastic reviews in Brendan Fraser's performance. But it wasn't about the movie. The review was actually about the social it had nothing to do with the film that was screened in the cinema. They had nothing bad to say about the film, but their review was negative because of how they looked at it, the implications in the social environment. And that's where I think we're seeing a lot of film critics do that. And so a lot of the film critics today do. They're going to say Jordan Peele is the greatest suspense person. Because why? Because it's the most recent. It's recency bias is really what it is. And they have also shows them a limited understanding. Because if you don't think that John Carpenter is John Carpenter, if you don't think that Hitchcock is Hitchcock, I mean, Jordan Peele's fantastic, but let's taper that back a little bit. Produce double digits in film that hit that mark, and then maybe we can talk.
Totally agree. But let's move on and introduce our next guest.
Oh shit.
So this gentleman, you can find him in the section of the 108. He's a 108 OG. He has a great show that shows some collections and memorabilia stuff on this website called thetainglove.com.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. Huh? I don't know. He's also the Mrs. Aloha Mr. Hand is Jennifer Aniston. She just doesn't know it yet. But let's introduce Mr. Aloha Mr. Hand.
Aloha, Mr. Hand.
Hey, fellas, how's it going?
Good. How you doing, man?
Mr. Hand.
Hey, fellas, how's it going?
I see that quote. My God, that's a long.
It's been a rough week, but
what are you talking about? Your football team won.
Status quo. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but I had to sit through some 0-6 bullshit.
Oh man.
There was some 0-6. There was some 0-6 bullshit that's going to be discussed later today.
All right.
Yes, sir. There is.
And this is a tease. People better buckle up because I got things to say.
He's got things to say, people.
But as we mentioned earlier, Pete, we said that we were going to do what the audience wanted. Our Twitter group actually came out and said they wanted us to do some Adam Sandler movies. So we got an action-packed Adam Sandler reviews with you guys. You guys want to get into this? Yeah. All right.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Wait, was that rhetorical?
Yeah. Well, let's do it. All right. Let's go into the first one.
Shampoo is better. I go on first and clean the hair. Conditioner is better. I leave the hair silky and smooth. Oh, really, fool? Really? Stop looking at me, Swan.
So 1995's Billy Madison, directed by Tamara Davis, who also did Half Baked and a bunch of music videos for Depeche Mode and Tone Loc's Wild Thing, which I thought was pretty cool. Co-starring Bridget Wilson Sampras, Larry Hankin, and Bradley Whitford, and also Darren McGavin of The Christmas Story. This movie had a budget of $10 million and brought in a box of 26.4. Swole, tell me about Billy Madison.
Oh man, Svo was a young 7th grader when this movie came out, and everyone was talking about it around the lunch table and quoting it. And also, Veronica Vaughn was hot, smoking hot. I remember seeing her in Mortal Kombat, and then I realized she was married to my favorite tennis player of all time. Veronica Vaughn is a smoke show. Billy Madison is a classic, and this started my love affair of Adam Sandler flicks. What about you, Fids?
This is great. My Billy Madison story is even cooler. I was now a senior in high school, and I was in love with the Rose Queen, Michelle Smolinski. I was 100%. Roselle's Rose Queen. Her mom was the mayor of Roselle and everything, and I was in love with her. She was a senior when I was a junior, and we felt, I was like, I thought I was in the friend zone. No idea. I'm an idiot. We watched the O.J. Simpson chase together. She was playing tongue torture. She licked my forehead. I had no idea that it was her trying to tell me to, hey, make a move, idiot. I didn't know that. Whatever. Move on. Friend zone. She goes to the University of Illinois. And I go down to see her, to visit her on a weekend. I took the train down. I took the Spirit of New Orleans, I think it was actually, from Union Station. And I go down to visit her for the weekend. And this is the weekend. I legitimately, on Friday night, it was opening night. It was the first night for Billy Madison. So we went and saw Billy Madison in the theater. Obviously, fantastic, right? Well, Saturday night, Adam Sandler did stand-up live at the Pavilion. And so my whole opening weekend for Billy Madison was seeing Billy Madison, and the next night going to see Adam Sandler, by the way, of which I had played They're All Gonna Laugh at You as a CD, probably more than any other. I mean, Medium Pace is probably one of the funniest songs I've ever heard in my entire life.
See that shampoo bottle? Now stick it up my ass.
Push it down at a medium pace. And talk about your boyfriend's. Never mind. All right. So, anyway, but that whole album, the severe beating of a high school Spanish teacher. Hola, hay problema. Mi casa, su casa. Like that whole thing. So, got to see him do the stand up, got to see him sing his songs, which there was a limited, it was before the GOAT even. So, this is pre GOAT. And it was great. So, seeing Billy Madison for me, it will always be my favorite Adam Sandler film, period. I will never be able to walk away and say that Billy Madison isn't. The randomness of most of that film, of any films that Adam Sandler ever did after that, there was never a film more random, whether it's Miss Lippy putting glue on her eyes, whether it's obviously Steve Buscemi's character just in general existing in the universe, or the clown that they literally waited 45-50 minutes to make the joke about the clown that literally dies, or they think he dies. He bleeds out of his mouth and out of his ears like black blood too. Hey, I bet you thought that I was dead. And pops him back up at the end. Like, why not? Let's do a singing montage for no apparent reason. And
I love that you have like vivid memories of like seeing this live and that weekend. What about you, Pete? How do you feel about Billy Madison?
I go back a little further because I remember seeing Adam Sandler on MTV's Remote Control. Yes, I am that old. I was a fan from that. And then obviously he went on to Saturday Night Live. And one of the funniest Saturday Night Live skits of all time is Schmidt's Gay. And if you haven't seen Schmidt's Gay, go to YouTube and watch it. It is him and Chris Farley. It is incredible. You'll love, and all I got to say is using Van Halen's Beautiful Women, perfect song for the skit. Perfect song.
I'll never forget Chris Farley in that skit just going like,
I mean, let's be honest too. Adam Sandler really first graced us with his presence as Smitty in the Cosby Show. He was best friend. Like,
yeah, that's correct. Yes, but with Billy Madison, I was a little reluctant when it first came out. I'm like, I don't know. It seems sort of, this is sort of a played out type of story, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? But I just remember I will apply this next statement to several of the movies that are coming up. I went to Crestwood to go see it.
Oh man.
And that's where I saw most of my Adam Sandler movies, is at Crestwood. And I just remember being in the theater, and it's one of those movies where you watch it and you miss things the first time because you're laughing so hard at certain points. You just miss something. And, I had to see it again because I'm like, I missed this, I missed that. And I still, to this day, there are moments in this movie where you see something new. And I think that's a sign of a great comedy, is when you could see it for the 20th, 30th, 40th time, and you still catch something different each time.
I agree completely. I think this movie holds up. I think it's hilarious, and I think it was it was kind of the start of like something brilliant. He went on a run here after this.
Yes.
Of fantastic movie after fantastic movie. And yeah, there's some shitty movies in there, according to critics, but fanboys love his movies. Yump.
Fuck the critics. Fuck the critics. Because it's about, and this is one thing that drives me nuts about critics. I remember at times I would read a review and say, oh, this movie's so great, 4 stars and everything. I go see them and I'm like, this fucking sucks. Because there's times where you want to go see a movie and just forget about what's going on in the world and laugh your ass off.
I love that you said that, because I think that ties into an article that Fids wrote this week. Oh, look at that. I love that. That's a question that we asked on the pod. Thank you, Jackie. This is the first movie you saw in the theater without your parents. But anyways, like Fids wrote an article about the power of the theater and how going to the theater is like this magical experience. And I'm not going on a Nicole Kidman rant here. I'm not.
I'm about to back.
But you shut your phone,
Heartbreak never felt better in a podcast like this.
especially now where you have your cell phone and you have information at your fingertips 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You shut your phone off for 2 hours and nothing else matters but you and the screen. So I love that you said that about not just Sandler movies, but movies in general. Yump, you're
Right.
the only one that hasn't touched on Billy Madison.
This is like one of my favorite, probably comes down to probably my third favorite Sandler movie. My favorite is going to come up soon, but I just love me and my brother still quote this to this day. Carl, I think Norm Macdonald knocks it out of the park in here. That's Frank.
Yeah.
Just especially the part when he's sitting at the pool and
Sure.
he's like, "Hey, Billy," and he's like, "Where's Billy?" And they're like, "Dude, he's at school." Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Most underrated line of the entire movie. I got this shirt from Frank.
Yeah, and he lifts it up and it says Frank.
Are you some kind of moron?
And then as I was reading, Norm Macdonald was actually getting wasted to do those
Jack Nicholson
scenes.
now or 1978?
Yeah. Me and my brother actually just said that the other day. Jack Nicholson now, but I thought it's a great movie. I did find it funny that Bradley Whitford, who played Eric, never saw the movie fully. So when people would go up to him and say business ethics, he know what the hell they were talking about. So, but I think it's a good movie.
Burning dog poo and the human response.
Or my wife, the cheating whore.
Don't put it out with your boot, Ted.
Don't tell me my business, devil woman.
You're all gonna die. Like, Adam Sandler always takes it like, here's the response, and then we're gonna go one more level up after the first response, because then it goes from like just there's poop again, and then like you're all gonna die, or like any kind of like with did you see that guy's balls? They were weird. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Or the whole rant with the from the principal? Like, again, one of the most classic "you're an idiot" speeches of all time. And I award you no points. May God have mercy on your soul.
And your soul.
What do we got next, Yump?
Yep. Let's go on to the next one.
Son of a bitch, Paul. Why didn't you just go home? That's your home. Are you too good for your home? Answer me. Suck my white ass, Paul.
Happy Gilmore in 1996, directed by Dennis Dugan. Now, Dennis Dugan actually directed 9 Adam Sandler production or movies that he starred in, which are ridiculous. He also directed Problem Child and Beverly Hills Ninja. This movie co-stars Christopher McDonald, Julia Bowman, Francis Bay, Carl Weathers, and Alan Corvert. This movie had a budget of $12 million and a box office of $41.2 million. Mr. Han, let me know what you think about Happy Gilmore.
This is my favorite Adam Sandler movie. Absolutely. And I have quoted the whole speech about, why don't we go eat some hay? Pieces of shit. Yeah, I just may. But all that, and I have also done on the golf course, as for those of you who don't know, I play golf a lot. On the golf course, I have used the "why don't you go home? That's your home" to a golf ball before. And I have, on more than one occasion, done the Happy Gilmore drive. I can do it. It took me a long time to learn how, but I am able to do it, and I am able to win money from people because I can do it. And all I got to say is this. This is really, if you watch this movie closely, Alan Covert, who plays the caddy. The homeless caddy. This is the beginning. To me,
I love Alan Covert.
Yeah,
love him.
To me, this is the beginning of the Sandler verse, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
because Alan Covert just keeps appearing in all the different movies. Then you add on, later on you bolt on Rob Schneider, who keeps appearing as the food delivery guy. I can't think of his name. So this is my favorite Adam Sandler movie. As I said, for Billy Madison, I did go see this at Crestwood. There's another one I went and saw at Crestwood. And like you said, also Dennis Dugan, him working with Dennis Dugan multiple times. And you could see the rapport that they had in this movie and how it translates to other movies down the road.
But Dennis Dugan always has a cameo. He's the PGA, the head of the PGA Tour in Happy Gilmore.
Yes. And he's in Big Daddy, he's the parent. Or he's the guy at the house when they're trick-or-treating.
Right. He's like, hey, next time be prepared.
Yeah.
We got a
exactly
here, man. Do the right thing.
Yeah, Dennis Dugan doing his Alfred Hitchcock impression by having the cameo in every movie.
I love it. I love Happy Gilmore. To me, Happy Gilmore is perfect because it combines like two of my favorite things: stupid PG-13 comedies and sports. And it's a combination of that. And Carl Weathers is in it. And we need to talk about something here.
Julie Bowen.
I don't even care if there's a midget on a tricycle. She's still hot. And beer pouring out of pitchers. Just God help us all.
Because she's smoking hot in this movie, and she shows up in this sitcom, 20 years later, Modern Family, and she's still smoking hot.
It's insane. I love that she's still there too.
Yes.
You also,
Brian, you did.
Brian, you missed Adam Sandler's appearance in The Natural as well.
Yep, he was.
Care about that? He was Billy Savoy.
No, he played the light that got hit by the ball.
Wonder Boy number 4 from shot number 6.
No, but
he was like 50 of those Wonder Boy bats, and my buddy's dad had one of them when I was in college. His dad actually owned one of those props because he had to make a bunch, obviously. And I'm like, that's cool.
I have held the Wonder Boy in my hands.
Did you buy your dinner first?
No, I bought her dinner first. So, but no, at the Baseball Hall of Fame, that is where the Wonder Boy bat is.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yes, Brian, we did talk about Smitty not a lot, but we talked about a little bit.
We touched on him.
Yes.
He was
touched on him.
Hey, guys, let's be honest. Let's not use words like touch and Cosby in the same, like.
Oh, my God.
And we also
referred
to...
It's a family show.
Yes. And we also referred to Adam Sandler in Remote Control, too, Brian, just so you know.
But this movie actually is my favorite, too, Pete. Like, it's my favorite of the Sandler, universe. Christopher Macdonald steals the show in this movie as Shooter McGavin, and to find out that he actually rejected the role a bunch of times to the point where Adam Sandler was actually asking Kevin Costner to do it, and then he eventually came back and did it, is hilarious. Me and my brother quote Shooter McGavin. I mean, there's a Shooter McGavin freaking Twitter that you can follow that just goes back and forth.
Hilarious.
And also, did you guys see last year on the 25th anniversary of Happy Gilmore, Adam Sandler tweeted him doing a drive like 25 years later.
Look, how about this? Raise your hand if you could actually hit a golf ball that way, because I actually did it, and it's fine. That's not that hard, actually. It's great.
No, it's not.
How often did you try it at the driving range and knowing that dude, like the club pros, like down there going, that stupid fucking movie. Every time people come out here now, they're doing that stupid walk into the fucking ball, and they're stepping into their swing, and they're hitting the people 5 feet down the range because they're missing off the end of the tip, and it's hitting some guy in the butthole. Like I don't know how many times. So I can
tell you where I did it.
Crestwood.
I can tell you. No, not at Crestwood. That's where I saw it, but close. At the Hickory Hills Executive 9-hole golf course on hole number 8, because it's secluded. That's where you can practice it. And if you're like me, cheap, you go there on like a Sunday afternoon, and you buy for like $15. You do the Twilight Golf. No one else is there, so you could work on your game, and you could work on that too.
I like it.
All right, guys, let's move on to the next one.
My favorite Sandler flick.
The best part about Happy Gilmore too is the Ben Stiller Hal L appearance. I want to make sure we cannot if I'm on this podcast, we cannot acknowledge Hal L, because you're in my world, Grandma. I will put you to sleep, or you will go to sleep, or I will put you to sleep. Also, a Halloween costume that I have pictures of where it was probably the most interesting Halloween night I've ever had, and I had interaction with a lot of people, including law enforcement that night, dressed as Hal L. And my friends tell that one to this day that Hal L told the cop to go to sleep or he will put you to sleep. But apparently the cop did not take too kindly to that night. So that was
I thought you were going to say you had a Gene Simmons mask and someone was sucking on your tongue.
Oh, no, Granny. She loves that shit, though.
All right, let's keep this train rolling.
All right. Well, here we go. Yes.
Hey, Linda. You're a bitch.
The Wedding Singer, 1998, directed by Frank Coraci, who also did The Waterboy and a bunch of other silent movies we'll be getting to. This movie's co-stars Drew Barrymore, Alan Covert, Christine Taylor, Matt Glave, and Angela Featherstone. This movie had a budget of $18 million and a box office of $123 million. So this is Sandler's first big blockbuster. Swole, tell me about The Wedding Singer.
The Wedding Singer to me is the poster child for romantic comedies and what they should be. It's funny, it's goofy, it has a fantastic soundtrack. Drew Barrymore is an absolute smoke show at her peak in this movie. The supporting cast with Alan Covert and I think Frank Coraci is in the movie as well as his brother-in-law. The references to everything that happens in the 80s, like nice picture, Freddy Krueger. Thank you. I just think that this is the ideal romantic comedy, and Sandler and Barrymore have this chemistry that's perfect, and I love it, and it's my favorite movie. I saw it with my best friend Mike in the whole world while my dad was in the theater next to us seeing Primary Colors with John Travolta because I worked at AMC South Barrington and I could get whoever I wanted in for free. And we walked out with a garbage bag full of popcorn because everything was free. And it was just, I look back fondly at this movie and I still love it. So,
yeah, same thing. I love the fact that it has so many cameos. Like you said, a throwback to the 80s. I love the Van Halen line, "Take off the shirt or they might break up."
You might change the band.
Yeah, change the band. I love that Billy Idol's in this. Nobody talks that way to Billy. Just awesome. Steve Buscemi's wedding toast is hilarious in the movie.
Oh my God.
To his brother, his singing at the end. John Lovitz. It's just it's full a bunch of cameos and a lot of good stuff. Like this is like peak Sandler.
You remember that time when we were in Puerto Rico and I guess they were prostitutes. I don't remember paying, but
my favorite
world. Never had one lesson.
Self-taught, no lesson.
Pop right to him too. Like just
Yeah. What about you, Pete? What do you think about this movie?
I'm a big fan of this movie. I really enjoyed it. The one unfortunate thing that this movie went up against, it came out around Valentine's Day in 1998, if I remember correctly.
He had a couple
it went up against the juggernaut called Titanic. And I think that impacted some of its box office as well. But one of my favorite lines in this movie is when he makes his friend, the limo driver, actually have to audition to drive their limo. And they were cold.
They were cold. Do you understand how many times I've used that line when we're setting up something for our baseball tournament or something, and I knock it? They were cold. Every time. Carrie, she's gonna yell at me for this. So Carrie hit a cone the other day, and she's like, I don't know if it's a stain or if it's a mark or a scratch. I'm like, they were cold. I'll fucking kill you. Like I'm like, oh, you did get the joke.
The other line that I use all the time, no matter like if we're out and we're eating dinner and I take a bite of something, I go, "That's a good meatball."
Oh, dude, she's so good in that. Oh, I miss her. I thought she'd live forever.
It's just a perfect romantic comedy. I love it.
You know, the throwouts too, like the Boy George part with the late Arquette sister,
Alexis Arquette.
Yeah. And like you said, like having Frank Severo. I mean, you have a guy that's like basically been in every mafia movie ever, and he's like the brother-in-law.
I still can't look at him without thinking of Goodfellas and him getting whacked.
The cattle
guy too, and of course we got Peter Dante, but he's kind of cuckoo now. But Carmen Philpe has been in hold on, how many? I mean, if you look at his filmography, he's been in probably 55 films. And I don't know if you know who Carmen Philpe is, but he's the old man from the bar. He also was Bobby in Ernest.
Daddy.
All the Ernest films.
Wasn't he in Big? And wasn't he in Big Daddy too in the bar when they were watching Monday Night Football?
No, that's a different old man.
No, it's a different guy.
It's different old man.
Is it okay? Because that's what happens if you drink too much soda. You rot your teeth out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's totally different guy. No, this guy though, he's been in so much stuff. Like I mean, look at some of his last stuff. He always played the old man. He was in 8 Crazy Nights, obviously. He was a bum number 1 in The Fourth Tenor.
But let's move on to the next one, guys.
And don't forget Julia Gulia. Just don't forget that.
Yeah. And of course the bully boyfriend, fiance.
Yes.
Tell me, what is your secret? How do you find yourself in the right position all the time?
That's a good question. What happens is the center has the ball first, and quarterback will say hike. That's when the center puts the ball into the hands of the quarterback. So what I'll do is I'll start tackling the quarterback unless he give the ball to somebody else, in which case I'll try to tackle that person.
Gentlemen, which brings me to my next point. Don't smoke crack.
The Waterboy, made in 1999, directed by Frank Coraci, who co-stars Kathy Bates, Farzal Balk, Jerry Reed, and Henry Winkler. This movie had a budget of $23 million and a box office of $198 million. Now, we brought up this movie a bunch. So when we do our pod, is because this movie made a lot of money for Star Wars fans actually going to see the movie because it had the trailer for the Phantom Menace. It's one of the few films that had it. So they would go in, pay to see the movie, watch the trailer, and walk out. This movie, to me, it's still pretty hilarious. Just the character of Bobby, the screaming. I do like the fact that they had it down in Mississippi, not Mississippi. I forget where they have it. Louisiana. With Kathy Bates is awesome as a comedian. Comedic role. Henry Winkler is great in here. This movie's it's not supposed to be taken seriously, but it's hilarious to me.
The devil? Everything's the devil, mama.
Abraham Lincoln is the devil?
She showed me her boobies and I like it.
Ben Franklin? Ben Franklin's devil?
I think this is just another example of you can combine stupid comedy with sports. You'll get 15 and 16-year-old boys and young guys to go out to see it. And then they'll convince their girlfriends to go see it. This movie is awesome. I love it. It's not Wedding Singer and Billy Madison amazing, but it's so quotable. I love it.
Saw this 6 times at Lake in the Hills. 6 times. And with my stoner buddies too. So you get stoned in the parking lot right when you're pulling in, and you go up to the ticket taker and you're like, I would always position myself third in line and let them wear it. And they'd be like, 1 for the Waterboy. 1 for the Waterboy. And I would just go, same thing. And then there's my money. And then walk in. This was Adam Sandler being channeling all of, because he had done this voice. I mean, this was his Saturday Night Live voice. Like that whole cabin boy or canteen boy, and that whole persona that he created. He threw this right into Bobby Boucher for the Waterboy and turned that character into something that, again, at this time period, ESPN jumps in, right? This is the first time we're seeing actual sports broadcasts in the movie where it's real. It's like really, Dan, did you come up with that all by yourself? They're making fun of the entertainment we're consuming at the same time, because that Adam Sandler is such a big sports fan. And you have this whole thing, and again, the hitting and the violence, because everything that Adam Sandler did in his early career was predicated on unnecessary violence, which was awesome. Whether it's Billy Madison, the dude fucking trying to cut a guy with his skate and beating the shit out of Bob Barker. You got Billy Madison, he does what he does. In the Waterboy, again, you got the tackling and you beating the shit out of your Colonel Sanders professor. It's just early Adam Sandler had everything to do with just let it out and throw it at somebody. Yeah, and there was that subtle violence as comedy though. And as he aged, of course, he knew that kind of would probably hurt his body too. But I think Punch Drunk Love was kind of that was the end of it for him. But we'll get to that. Hey,
don't get ahead.
I know, but I'm saying the violent era of Adam Sandler films, I think that was about where it kind of that was the peak. That was the end.
Yeah, this is still peak.
This was peak.
I think
Sandler.
The Wedding Singer started a run though, right? It went Wedding, went Waterboy, and then what's next, Jump? Let's move on to our next movie.
Sure thing, sir.
Can I say one thing before we move on? With the Waterboy, I went and saw it the night it came out. I was working in Schaumburg, and I went to the old Schaumburg Theater to see it the night it came out because traffic sucked to try and get home. But then they made the announcement about the Star Wars Phantom Menace preview. You could either see The Waterboy or Meet Joe Black. And I had absolutely no fucking desire to see Meet Joe Black. So I went and saw The Waterboy again just so I could see the preview.
Meet Joe Black, 3 hours of
Let's go into the next one, guys.
Anyway, I think Mr. Koufax should be acquitted of all the charges. If OJ can get away with murder, why can't Sonny have his kid? This guy knows what I'm talking about. No more questions.
No more questions.
The best part about that clip is that you actually hear Adam Sandler break character and say, "No more questions."
No more questions.
So Big Daddy, made in 1999, directed by Dennis Dugan, co-starring Joey Lauren Adams, Jon Stewart, Leslie Mann, Cole, and Dylan Sprouse. This movie had a budget of $34 million, and it made a whopping $234 million at the box office. This movie is actually where Adam Sandler met his wife. She plays the waitress at the bar with when they go see the Jets game. But this another movie I thought was great. This movie actually was first supposedly supposed to be starring Chris Farley, but unfortunately he passed, and Adam Sandler took it as one of his vehicles. Adam Sandler has gone on saying that this is probably the closest you can see him as a father, represents him as a father with his kids. But it's hilarious. It's got its own little quirks in there. Again, continuing with the whole Adam Sandler universe. I think this movie is great, and he just, like I said, just keeps making hits as they go. What do you think, Pete?
I agree with you. This is probably my number 2 for Adam Sandler. And there is one major flaw in the movie. And it's
going to be about the Blue Jays in the World Series is my guess, because that's
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. But if you watch when he gives the kid a bath, at one point there's a wall there. At the next point, there's no wall there. It's a freestanding tub. That's just something I saw, and it just drives me nuts to this day when I see it. But
I thought for sure it was going to be about the historical inaccuracy of the Blue Jays in the World Series when they're talking about it. I thought for sure.
They pretty much, they don't go into too much detail about it, but Joe Carter did end that World Series, and he does refer to Joe Carter, and then going to Hooters and having the Canadian beer, which is like moonshine.
They make it like moonshine. Hell yes.
Hell yes. Yeah. A little exaggerated, but the moonshine part, little exaggerated, but whatever. But no, I think this is, like I said, this is my second favorite movie. One thing I'll say about this movie, this is what I was actually watching at midnight when 1999 became the year 2000. I was working for IBM. I was getting paid triple time to sit in a quote-unquote war room in case there were problems with the Y2K conversion.
Wow.
All we did was sit all night and watch movies. We
Isn't
watched
that
this.
No, never mind.
Yeah. Basically, we sat and watched this. We watched Austin Powers, Spy Who Shagged Me, and The Mummy, and The Matrix. Those are the 4 we watched that night. We did nothing.
Good night.
Yeah, it was a great night. I got a shitload of money for it, too.
So I went to go see this the night it came out. It was June 25th of 99. And the same night that this came out, it went up against another powerhouse, Will Smith's Wild Wild West.
Oh God!
That just gave me diarrhea. Think about that film gave me gastrointestinal distress.
We spent all morning in my buddy's pool swimming because his parents were out of town, and we were partying and we were swimming or whatever. And we cleared enough water out of the pool by jumping in and out of it that we had to put the hose in there to refill it. Well, we put the hose in there to refill it, and we forgot about the hose, and we went to go see South Park, the movie. We forgot it. We went to go see Big Daddy, and we went to go see Wild Wild West. And when we came back, the backyard was flooded. That's how I remember this movie. But I love this movie. I think this is, once again, this is a succession of absolutely perfect, stupid comedies from Adam Sandler.
Totally agree. What about you, Fitz?
This was actually the first time that Adam Sandler kind of like went after your heartstrings. The other stuff had been goofy and silly, and it was like dummy, and which it was fantastic. But this was where Adam Sandler said, I'm ready to show you. And Tim Herlihy, by the way, his frequent partner in writing in Herlihy Boy, Saturday Night Live sketch also. But I think that they put this together, and they wanted to like show that they can actually do more than just drama. And it's kind of funny. It got nominated for 5 Razzies, and he actually won the worst actor category in the Razzies for this performance. But for all of us, we're like, it's freaking awesome. Like the character was great. But when you look at Steve Buscemi in this film, between this and then another film we're going to talk about here in a second, I feel like they're almost the same characters, and it's absolutely the best Steve Buscemi like cameo thing that you could ever conceive. But and we'll get there when we get there, obviously. But then you have Rob Schneider, and Rob Schneider at this point in his career was kind of like trying to figure it out. He was doing like a bunch of like he was the Animal and Deuce Bigelow too, like at this point. So he's trying to figure out his career too.
Hey, I know you always order 3-piece cheesecake.
The delivery, damn you give him the easy ones. Like that is one of the best lines ever. Like molten lettuce and tomato. Like he's so funny in this as small, and that's what really Rob Schneider, his career should really be in a nutshell, is small doses of Rob Schneider's hilarious. Long films with Rob Schneider is torture.
I also agree with you that like this is where he tugged at your heartstrings, but he also added comedic elements to it. Like when Cole and Dylan Sprouse they played the kid in this movie, when they're getting taken away, he looks at him and Sandler's crying. He goes, "But I wiped my own ass," and like you can't help but be like, "Fuck, man! Like let him have the kid." Like it's a great movie. I love it.
Totally.
It comes across as a Jimmy Stewart movie, like in an Adam Sandler kind of way, though.
Which is funny because didn't he remake a Jimmy Stewart movie?
Yes, he did. But one more thing. One more thing. Leslie Mann in this movie, Smoke Show. The future Mrs. Isn't she married to?
She's Judd Apatow.
God, I can't. Judd. Yes. Judd Apatow. Yeah, the future Mrs. Judd Apatow.
Let's just call
Smoke
it
Show.
Let's just call it what it is. There's a scene where she's in the frozen food section at the grocery store, and like Microsoft went down 10 points, and you see like her nipples are hard. You see everything.
Oh yeah.
I actually learned about eczema from that movie. I'd never heard of it before.
Eczema, gross.
Is that the guy with the old balls?
Yeah, so many quotable.
What's his 5-year plan? Don't die. So good.
Also, Sheryl Crow does a Guns N' Roses cover for the soundtrack. So
yeah, Child of Mine, baby.
Yes, she does. Let's move on to our next one, guys.
Let's do it.
Ah, yes. Number 2 on my list.
Release the awesome. What you do is put it in your mouth and let the meat slide down your throat hole. Not you.
Popeye's chicken is the shiznit.
1999's Little Nicky, directed by Stephen Brill, who did the Mighty Ducks franchise, Heavyweights, Ready to Rumble, and a couple other Sandler flicks. He also did Without a Paddle and Movie 43. This movie co-stars Patricia Arquette, Bryce Ifrans, excuse me if I didn't say that right, Harvey Keitel, Tiny Lister Jr., and the great Rodney Dangerfield.
And Quentin Tarantino.
Yes, Quentin Tarantino as the preacher. That was almost our quote, but I took that one away because it was too long. This one had a budget of $85 million, and this is one of the first movies for Sandler that actually didn't make enough at the box office. 58.3 at the box for this one. Fitz, tell me about Little Nicky.
This is my second favorite Adam Sandler film of all time. I don't know if it's Beefy, the bulldog that speaks with Satan's power, whether it's the fact that his heavy metal obsession, and then we realize that when you play Chicago backwards is when you get "We Will Spill the Blood of the Innocents." But this whole film is just so it's again, it takes all the Ozzy Osbourne actually like eating a bat's head. Like it just plays on so many of the fun tropes of like hell and death. And I think that when we can make fun of death, I think we've got good comedy. I think death comedy is really good because again, we're all going there sometime sooner or later. Mm-hmm. And I think we can joke about it a little bit. It helps us at least kind of like laugh. And this one's great because you've got like the biggest idiot son who actually isn't an idiot. He's just a sweet kid who get in the flask. Like my dad's in hell. He's falling apart. Like,
it's rough when we get old.
Right. Yeah. And these, and again, you've got, Arquette again. She's playing another Arquette in an Adam Sandler film. And you know, just the playfulness and how they, they mess around and how they take the tropes. Adam Sandler at this point is looking at all the things that we're so used to and just saying, let's make fun of it a little bit. And this one just plays with all the tropes. And it to me, again, it's the name of this podcast today is Popeye's chicken is the shiznit. He literally tames the demons of hell with Popeyes. It was that easy.
I think one of the most underrated lines or moments in this movie is not on screen at all. It's the end credits or the post whatever where little Nicky's mom remarried her aerobics instructor in heaven, Chris Farley. And like after all this time, he still misses his buddy and he still wants to shout him out. And he said before that if Chris was around, he would have been in Grown Ups later on, Mm-hmm. This movie's so fucking dumb and goofy and funny and he brings the rapping pastor again into the church and
Tarantino.
I love Quentin Tarantino's in it playing a religious zealot. I love it. I love this movie. I showed it to my wife and she hated it.
And you also get to see a scene where Hitler gets a gigantic coconut. Pineapple shoved up his ass as deserved every day. And I love that it's timed every day.
And Tidhead.
Yep. Oh God, Kevin Nealon. So good.
Tidhead.
Another great comedian. What do you think, Pete, about this movie?
Not one of my favorites. The voice just was throwing me off. Hey, it sounds like a freaking pervert or something. I don't know. Yeah. And hey guys, but it does sort of remind me of someone we all know, but I'm not gonna go there.
Trexie,
Ixo, or whatever the hell it was. But the hairdo just fucked me up too.
Oh my God.
Goofy fucking hairdo of his as well. As someone who's follically challenged, I am envious of it because there's hair there, but I would try and do something more with my hair if I had any.
I think the cameos are fantastic too, right?
Yes. The cameos, I think, redeeming factor in this movie.
Yeah, you have Ozzy, and then he's like, cover Winkler and bees.
Poor Henry Winkler. By the way, the only person the Tainted Glove follows on Twitter now that Betty White has left us and her account no longer exists. We only follow Henry Winkler. He is amazing.
Well, that's because he has that kick-ass Roy Orbison tattoo.
They don't even follow us.
Nicest human being alive. So nicest human being alive gets to follow. Betty White was here. She's not alive. So now it's Henry. It's so Hank.
Yep.
Me, Pete, I totally agree with you. It's not my favorite Sandler film. When I first saw it, I remember seeing this as like a 14-year-old kid and was like, this is fucking stupid.
Right.
But it does have its moments though where it's funny. Like I love the Ozzy scene. I love Tiny Lister in there. I love the fact that Rodney Dangerfield gets knocked down. He's like, even in hell, I don't get no respect. But stuff like that is great, But I just think it was hit or miss, and I do like the fact he tries something new, and
yes,
it's kind of a miss for me on this one.
I gotta ask you because I asked this to Beef when he said he didn't like The Irishman. Like, how does it feel to be so wrong?
Well, I'm not the only one because when Pete brought up that voice, every respected critic I read was like Adam Sandler's voice is horrible.
It's just I get flashbacks to something that happened earlier today, but that's a story for another day.
All right, what do we got next?
Or another podcast in about like an hour and a half.
Yep, let's go. Let's move on to the next one.
Right back up. Let's go.
Easy was always the best speaker in school.
Easy? Some job, by the way, Your Majesty. I thought we were watching Scooby-Doo.
Mr. Deeds, made in 2002, directed by Stephen Brill, co-starring Winona Ryder, Peter Gallagher, Jared Harris, and John Turturro. This movie had a budget of $50 million and a box office of $171 million. This movie, to me, it's okay. I think John Turturro really makes this movie with his character, especially when he's very sneaky. But it's a funny little vehicle. Steve Buscemi and his cameos are great as Crazy Eyes. This movie I kind of found it kind of hard to pull like quotes from that were memorable. And I think just his character is probably the best one to get from. It was an okay movie. It was to me it was better than Little Nicky, but I mean, I think it's kind of like he's kind of in a rut right now. I think he's kind of trying new things out to see it because this is a remake, but I think it was an okay movie. What do you guys think?
It was a remake of a Frank Capra movie, if I remember.
Well,
Mr. Deeds Goes to Town.
And so you have to understand, by the way, Adam Sandler and Jim Carrey both actually are like diehard Frank Capra fans, by the way. So the fact that their films mirror Frank Capra it actually is with purpose. Like this was a bucket list thing for Adam Sandler. So I just as you brought up Frank Capra, thank goodness. That was really this is 100% his Capra like love homage.
Yes. But my favorite scene in the entire movie, and let me take a step back. This movie came out right when Winona Ryder was losing her appeal with the public because of those shoplifting charges and everything else that had come down in like the last year. And I think this is also around the time, maybe it was earlier, that her and Johnny Depp split. Because remember, Depp used to have the what was it, Winona Forever tattoo, and it became Wino Forever. I believe is what he changed it to. So I think
accurate.
I know that the shoplifting thing falls in this time frame. I think the Depp thing may have been a little bit earlier, but not much. But my favorite scene is when John Turturro finds out at the end that he's the heir, and the dance that he does.
He's the best. His character in this film. Please, I love feet. Like,
yes.
Sir, I fear you underestimate the sneakiness. Like his everything.
He adored Hawaiian Punch.
Oh God, everything he does in this, like his. I'm actually more shocked that there were never, because this is actually like the beginning of the Turturro and Sandler relationship, by the way, where he plays fucking hilarious characters for Adam Sandler. But Turturro in this, like his character deserves its own film now at this point. I want to know what happens to him now that he has inherited all of this fortune.
It's like $40 billion.
I don't know.
I mean,
maybe
he hire Rex Ryan. I don't know, but
maybe I love Sandler more than you, Young, because I think this movie is fantastic. Like
I loved it.
I think it was funny. I think that Alan Covert in the shower trying to sneak pictures of him and get insider information.
Providing you stop suching your ass.
Yeah. And then the Peter Gallagher on the plane ride, and he's like, when they just like he just talks about stupid shit throughout the whole movie. He's like, I try to make my own Frosties at home. I can never get the consistency right.
Congratulations, you have a spastic colon.
Cecil. No, it does have its moments. I mean, it has the John McEnroe scene where they go out and they start throwing shit at the cars. They go
jumps the car.
That part's hilarious. I just don't think it. I think it's. I mean, it has its moments. I just don't think it's like top Sandler. But I mean,
what do you want it to do, Yump? Like jerk you off under the table?
Yes. God
like,
damn it.
Well,
yes.
He likes feet, so don't underestimate the sneakiness next time you.
No, but I do love John Turturro. But
he's so good in this.
He really is.
Let's move on to the next one.
You're fired. Sorry.
How about $1 million? Okay.
Oh.
You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah!
Now say what I told you to say.
Eat that nutstrap, biatch!
8 Crazy Nights, made in 2002, directed by Seth Kearsley, who actually did the Dilbert TV series along with the Where's Waldo TV series that were animated. Co-starring Rob Schneider, Jackie Sandler, Austin Stout, and Kevin Nealon. This movie had a budget of $34 million, and again, it fell short at the box office, making $23.8 million. Swole, tell me about 8 Crazy Nights.
So 8 Crazy Nights came out at a time when I had to go and stay with my mom in Indiana, and I came back to see my friends, and we wanted to go see it, and my buddy and I went to go see it, and we love Adam Sandler movies, and it was a stupid Christmas animated movie, and it's not great. I watch it every year on Hanukkah because my wife and I have a Christmas movie draft, which we can discuss on like later on in the season, but the thing that makes me love this movie, and you guys know me and everybody knows me, is that Blink-182 wrote a song specifically for this movie called I Won't Be Home for Christmas. And it was their first Christmas song. And it was this beautiful pop punk like Christmas song about spending the night in jail and unwrapping a guy named Bubba's package. And it's hilarious and I love it. But that's why I love this movie is the Blink-182 Christmas song. I know they're not like child rapists like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but I love them, you know?
So, well, you go too far sometimes, my friend. Way too far with this
I
comment.
didn't even say
Really
anything.
pop punk fan.
I didn't even say anything, and I said Blink-182, and you looked down and shake your head in disgust.
I
You
was
think
reading
I'm not
something.
watching, but I am, and I saw it.
Oh, wow. I wish Nam was here to talk crap.
You're watching the 49ers game. You leave him out of this.
This
Look,
movie,
not 8 crazy nights, not 8 crazy bands. Let's go.
This movie wasn't my favorite again with Sandler. I think it's nice that he tried something new. The voice of Whitey was super annoying. Like this more like exaggerated, but this movie was okay. It was like hit or miss for most people.
It is what it is, man. Like if you're like hanging out with family at Christmas time and you need to put something on in the background while you guys open gifts and leave it on mute, that's what it's there for.
How did this movie have that big a budget?
Yeah, I don't know because
It's a fucking animated movie. Like, how do you have a $30 million budget on a movie? That movie has I watched that movie and I go, that's about a $8 million budget.
Well, I guarantee you 20 of it was Adam's like salary.
Yep. It was salary. That was a salary-based animated film. That budget was failed. That was.
It's not like it was cutting edge animation. My wife's gonna chime in when she listens to this because she fucking hates this movie.
I don't like it either. I actually.
It's not great. It's not great.
This is my first Adam Sandler swing and miss. Like for me, like I hadn't disliked or not like appreciated any. This one I was like, oh, you're really mailing it in, bro. Like mail it in. But
yeah, I think with this movie. He was trying to express the Hanukkah spirit, but what actually came out was we found out that he was able to make evil die tonight.
Oh, he got it in there.
Oh my God.
Slid it in. Not as subtle as Big Ben or Ben Affleck, but he slid it right in.
Wow. Pete, of all people, I feel like
he broke my heart, Fredo.
All right, we're gonna move on to the next one.
Keep on smiling. Oh shit! I said over easy.
Now, why did I do that? Because I refused to spoon with you last night?
Anger Management, released in 2003, directed by Peter Siegel, who also directed Tommy Boy, 51st Dates, Naked Gun, 33 1/3, Get Smart, and Grudge Match. This movie co-stars the great Jack Nicholson, along with Marissa Tomei and Alan Covert. This movie had a budget of $75 million and a box office of $195 million. Fitz, tell me about Anger Management.
You said it. 2 words. Marissa Tomei. Smoke show in this, by the way. No, this is great. This is Jack Nicholson kind of throwing it out there, trying to be young and hip after he had done some like more mature comedies, like where he would hide bacon in his pocket so the dog liked him, and you get Anger Management where he gets to play like a totally unhinged person. But the West Side Story love in this film is actually what stands out to me. The I Feel Pretty scene is so good. Of them, and they're stuck in traffic. Like I wish you could, if you could throw that clip in on this part, like I could sit back and watch that scene every time. Like it's so good, or the scene where he's got at this point, especially, I love her so much, and she's wearing the Boston Red Sox underwear.
Oh, Heather Graham.
Heather Graham at this point peak because she had just been in Austin Powers as well, and she was like Roller Girl and everything else, and. He goes, as much as I want you to take that, I would love for you to take all that off.
It stands for everything in this world that I hate.
Hilarious. So like that good. This is a good, stupid, fun. It's what we expect from Adam Sandler. This is vintage him. This is good stuff right here. It's not preachy either. It's just let's rock, let's be stupid, and at the end he comes to and of course Woody Harrelson's character and that whole
The cameo by Woody is awesome.
That could not get made today.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing is it's just humor, you know, and they're just being them, and that's what this one hit that though. This was a big bump.
The best part of this movie to me is the cameos, especially at the anger management classes when you have McEnroe, you have Bobby Knight. It's so spot on.
Well, not just cameos, but the normal list of like you have Luis Guzman.
Yeah. Who's insanely funny, by the way. One of the funniest dudes in Hollywood in little roles is Luis Guzman.
There,
Turturro.
Freaked out about the Falklands.
The two porn stars.
Yep.
And then what's his name? His other buddy that has the goofy eye. He's he's watching the Sixers game. He's like, "You gotta dunk that shit."
Turturro again. His anchor is just in this one again steals it. Like
were you in Vietnam? No, Grenada.
Yeah, Grenada. That's it. Yeah.
That's a shout out to a joke made in Natural Born Killers as well. I was there when the shit went down at Grenada.
No, I totally agree with everything you guys said. I think it's Sandler getting back to what made him money and what was good. And you know, I know him and Jack Nicholson have been trying to work on something for the past few years leading up to this, and I think it's kind of cool that Jack actually, you know, let his hair down and acted batshit crazy in this movie.
I love that.
And just also, do you know part of the reason why that they wanted to work together? They were golf buddies.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Makes sense, actually, because yeah.
I think from what I was reading, like I forget what other movie he offered him a role in, and Jack couldn't do it, but he was flattered, but he just couldn't do it.
I'm in for that. I am so in for that, Brian.
Brian, the only downside to this new Gomez Adams show or Adams Family show is the release date is November fucking 23rd. How do you not premiere that before Halloween?
It's a swing on this on that one, but I hope it does well, especially because Catherine Zeta-Jones is in there.
I like Jenny Ortega's fantastic.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
But let's move on to the next one, guys.
Listen, doctor, this friend of mine's been experimenting a little with steroids and he's been having a lot of wet dreams. Could there be a connection between those two?
Douglas, get off the juice. As far as the nocturnal emissions, why don't you take a swim, buy a shirt with no holes in it, find a beautiful vagina and take her to dinner?
Tell my friend he said so.
51st Dates. 51st Dates, released in 2004, directed by Peter Siegel, co-starring Drew Barrymore, Rob Schneider, Sean Astin, Blake Clark, and Dan Aykroyd. This movie had a budget of $75 million and a box office of $198. My favorite part of this movie, not just, you know, the comedy is great, as classic Sandler. I love that him and Drew Barrymore together, but that they do a callback to one of my other favorite movies from his buddy. And Peter Siegel directed this movie, which is Tommy Boy, when they're in the facility for the people who lost their memory. He actually says that they're funded by
Callahan
Automotive in Ohio, Sandusky, Ohio, TB Callahan, which I thought was a nice little callback to that. And especially the fact that Dan Aykroyd saying it is even funnier because he was a Zelensky.
Yes.
But that's just one of my things I liked about this movie. What about you, Swole?
I love 51st Dates. I think this was, you know how I feel about Sandler and Barrymore together. I think they're a fantastic duo. My wife's favorite movie with Sandler is the third movie in this trilogy that doesn't get a lot of love. But I think it's on Hawaii and he plays this guy, Henry. It's just so funny. And like Rob Schneider, like Fid said, in small increments, it's fantastic. And as the local dude, like, I think he's hilarious. He puts his dirty feet all over his pillow. He's like, hey, you want to get your feet off my pillow? I think this is a severely underrated flick in his filmography.
I absolutely agree with that. But I think there is a very low key, one of his best line deliveries of all time. It's very low key in this movie. When she looks at him and he says, yeah, I wish I was better looking.
I was better looking. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not that attractive. That part is hilarious.
Yes.
But also, Pete, as you were saying earlier with the Happy Gilmore golf swing, he actually makes fun of it in this movie, saying that's the stupidest damn golf swing I've ever seen. Which I thought was hilarious. What about you, Fitz? What do you think about this movie?
You know, this was at this time in my life too. I was in a place, and this was actually a date night experience too. It was like where I actually made dinner, and then I took the person out. Like it was a good. And so this one was the reunion of Drew Barrymore with Adam Sandler, which had happened with this person. We were in college at the time, the first time, and we were still together at this point. So it was like, oh, hey, remember that time we went to go see that movie together? And yeah. And so it was kind of a recreation kind of night. It was a good night. Like this film, though, brought out like that kind of concept of like commitment. And that's what I think that Adam, everything that Adam Sandler did, you could tell what's going on in his life at that time. And this film is about commitment. He's committed to her to do it every single day, every time out, and to be there. And this is Adam Sandler, and he's speaking about whatever is going on in his life. And that, obviously putting this together, the jokes are next level. Rob Schneider's fantastic. And when you get to the end, you get the finale, again, your Frank Capra shines through. You get the happy ending, and you have a really good finale. The finish of this film is so good. And everyone wanted this with Drew Barrymore, back with Adam Sandler at the time. They had such good chemistry in Wedding Singer. So this was a big, highly anticipated reunion. And, this one hit the mark. It was good. It was an ultimate date night film. And Adam Sandler, again, keeps capturing that at this point. That's where he's at in his evolution, I guess, too.
Totally agree. But let's move on to the next one.
I knew you couldn't resist my shit. I got the shakes that'll make you quake. I got the fries that'll cross your eyes. I got the burgers that'll...
I got burgers.
I just got burgers. I'm all right, thank you.
2005's The Longest Yard, again directed by Peter Siegel, starring Chris Rock, James Cromwell, Nelly, William Fitcher, Burt Reynolds, David Patrick Kelly, and Eddie Bunker. This movie had a budget of $90 million and a box office of $191 million. This movie, I think, is a good remake, and actually, I think it's better than the original. And the only reason I think it's better than the original is because it has more action you can see in it. The original didn't have that great of a, it's film as far as it didn't show the action packed of the football scenes. And I think this movie shows a lot more of it, and it has more memorable characters. What do you think about that, Pete?
I totally disagree. I think it's a good movie, but I don't think it's better than the original. Just Burt Reynolds, I think looks more realistic as a quarterback in the original than Adam Sandler, or I should say as a football player in the original than Adam Sandler does here. And I do love the opening of this movie. I think the opening is better in this one with Courtney Cox than I do in the original with, Burt Reynolds ripping away in the Jaguar and listening to some Leonard Skinner. But it's okay. It's not my favorite work. It's not my least favorite work. It's okay. That's all I got.
There's one inaccuracy that I just want to go on record and point out, that in no time in however long the football program has existed has a Florida State quarterback ever been accused of throwing a game. So that's what Paul Crewe did in this remake. And I just want to defend the integrity of the Florida State.
You mean the Florida State Criminals?
Hey,
just saying.
I mean the 4-0 Florida State Seminoles.
I'm with Pete, by the way. Burt Reynolds is Paul Crewe, period. This movie this is one of the films that I actually don't watch. If it's on TV, I change the channel. I watched it once and I've never gone back and watched it again. I actually didn't enjoy it. I love that Burt Reynolds got a little part in it too, but Paul Crewe, the original, the prison noir aspect of that film. This was a slapstick comedy film. It's not. They're not even remotely even the same genre, even, to be honest.
And honestly, all I'll say about the two movies is there is no way you can top Ray Nitschke getting the football thrown in his fucking junk twice in the first movie.
Let him through. Let him through. What?
I don't think it's necessarily, it's not better than the original, but I think it's a fun watch. I think Chris Rock as Undertaker or Caretaker is funny. I think Terry Crews, the audio clip that we used, cracked me up. Burt Reynolds coming back is funny. Goldberg, I think is really, really funny in this. It's a fun watch. It's not better than the original though.
It's just different. They're different. They took a concept and made like a parody of it. So it's like Scary Movie is not the same as Scream. Like it's just different.
Once again, though, you take stupid Sandler comedies and you put sports in it, and I'm there.
Yeah,
that's like buffalo wings and blue cheese dressing. Like those are my two favorite things to begin with. You put them all together and let's have some fun.
Peanut butter and ladies, same thing.
Cocaine and waffles.
All right,
women and booze. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's move on to the next one.
Anyway, the sooner you get back to work, the sooner you'll be partnerized. I taste shit. You do? Stacy, did you put shit in my lunch? Oh,
I'm gonna get going now, sir.
oh, Stacy!
2006 Click, directed by Frank Cochi, co-starring Fitz's girl Kate Beckinsale, Christopher Walken, David Hasselhoff, and Henry Winkler. This movie had a budget of $82 million and it made a box office of $240 million. Swole, tell me about Click.
This is probably my least favorite of the Sandler verse. Like, I don't hate it, but I don't love it. There are scenes in this movie that are, I know like movies are supposed to be that way, but there are scenes in this movie that are really, really depressing. And when I go to watch a Sandler movie, at least when I'm expecting a comedy, I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be sad. You know, when he realizes that he missed his whole life because he fast forwarded through it. I like it. I don't love it. It's not one of my favorites. Kate Beckinsale is always a smoke show. Henry Winkler as his dad is, you know, absolutely adorable. This is just not my favorite.
What about you, Pete?
Again, it's not one of my favorites. To me, this is when I started to lose a little bit of interest because I felt the question I was asking was, did he run his course? Has he run out of creative ideas? And I will say, I think there's been a few creative ideas that have come out since, but I think to me, this is where the downward trending started.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Same thing. So it's not my favorite. It's just some Sandler vehicle, and I think that
just there.
I think he was mailing it in for this one. To be honest with you guys,
Kate Beckinsale dresses up like a cowgirl. So this film,
we know where you stand.
Immediately was a success in that regard. But this is the Capra. It's the Capra influence. It's a little bit of guts at the end. It's the don't take for granted what you have moral story.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going through he's aging. You know, he's learning to embrace that part of his journey as well. So like his projects and his work should reflect that. And I think maybe at that point in his life, he was probably rushing through as a comedian and as a filmmaker, and he maybe was ignoring his family or maybe taking his family for granted. And he wrote that for his family. You know, you can kind of see it in his work. I mean, it really does. Like some of the other films, I'm sure we might not even cover, like literally are like for his children. So he's at this point becoming more self-aware of his mortality and also of like how time flies with don't get caught too much in the rat race.
What do we got next?
I want to suck your blood.
Suck my what?
Nothing.
Oh, it's cool. You want to suck something.
I was talking to somebody else.
Hey, don't go, bitch. Don't be a teen. You whore.
2007's I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry, directed by Dennis Dugan, co-starring Kevin James, Jessica Biel, Ving Rhames, Nick Swartzen, Dan Aykroyd and Steve Buscemi. This movie had a budget of 85 million and made 187 million at the box office. This movie to me does not age very well. The topic is, even when I saw it, I didn't think it was that great. I think Kevin James is great with his physical comedy, but this movie just didn't do it for me, especially the subject matter. I know it got panned a lot by a bunch of LGBTQ organizations. I just think this is like another hit and miss. I think he's tried to be a little controversial here, but I'm not a fan of this one. What about you, Pete?
I totally agree with everything you've said. The only the question I have about this: could this movie be made today?
There's no way.
There's no chance this movie could be made today. But again, I agree with you on Kevin James, and his physical presence in comedy is great. I mean, if you want to see it, go watch the movie Hitch. His physical, the way he moves around and his physical presence is hysterical, playing the lovesick puppy guy, if you will. But this movie, it was like a lot of cliches to me, and just I'm not saying this to be mean towards Adam Sandler, but trying to pass yourself, saying that you're like the hottest guy in New York or whatever the hell it was, or what was didn't he like in the movie, wasn't he like voted the hottest guy in New York or some shit like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Let's call it what it was. The movie was homophobic. Like,
yes,
it made a lot of jokes that it shouldn't have. It crossed the line. I don't love it. I don't necessarily love Kevin James comedy. But it is what it is.
I think that the thing too with this is I think there was good intent. I think this was a really, this was as if again, I'll just, vouch for myself at the time, especially that kind of like that year and where I was at in my own journey or whatever. That was a place that I hadn't really been exposed to in the first place. So this is almost written like somebody that has never really like been around the gay culture, and it was it had good intent. I don't think it was homophobic in the sense. I think that it was just misdirected, and I think that it used tropes that we as maybe like a regular average straight white male might not get or would get like as humor, because we had a misconception. And then once you've communicated and you've met and you've been in the community and you've seen these fantastic people, you realize that you're so far off. I think that this part of, I think he learned that in the release of this film too, is he heard from the culture. They were like, hey guys, you are so off. Let me show you this. And it opened a dialogue though. So there was a positive there, even in the failure, I think.
Well, and as I'll say this, I agree. I don't think they intentionally went out to be homophobic, if you will, or go down that path, but intentions versus result are two different things.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Totally agree with everything on this one. There's not really no point to spend too much time on this one. I think it's just there, and let's just move on to the next one.
You like to insult people? Was that your feet? Yes, it's the feet. The feet uppercut. Here comes the double foot. This is good. Smell it, smell it, smell it. Now take it. That's for you. Let me go.
You Don't Mess with the Zohan. This movie was released in 2008, directed again by Dennis Dugan, co-starring John Turturro, Emmanuel Chirique, and Nick Swartzen. This movie had a budget of 90 mil and made 204 at the box. Pete, tell me about You Don't Mess with the Zohan.
I actually liked this movie. I felt that after I was not fans of, I Now Pronounce You, Chuck and Larry, and Click. And then this came out, I was like, okay, maybe he's got a bit of his mojo back. Because it was, in a lot of respects, it was the stupid humor we've come to expect. I mean, let's face it. You don't go to an Adam Sandler movie generally to get like some kind of worldview message or anything like that. You go there to be entertained, to eat popcorn, and to laugh, and forget about whatever's troubling you for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it may be. So I felt like he was getting back on the right track with this movie. I appreciated it. Rob Schneider also makes a cameo in there. Just the way he becomes the hairdresser and how he sells his services, if you will. Just it's like it's so goofy and over the top that it's sort of funny.
I'm 100% with you. It's so over the top and funny, and like how they put hummus on everything and the fizzy bubbly, like. And Emmanuel Sharike is Sloane in Entourage, so I always got love for her. It's just a goofy, stupid movie, but I enjoyed it.
You can also see Adam Sandler trying to call for coexistence between two cultures too, because of how the his Israeli culture and the Palestinian culture, and so there's the subtle didacticism. Again, this is the Frank Capra. I can't stress enough how Capra just pops out in everything that he does. But he's trying to tell everybody to get along, and this is the best way Adam Sandler knows how, and that's why these films. It's not one of my favorite Adam Sandler films, but I love the risk taking that it took some balls to kind of make this film. I think people take it for granted now, but at the time, I don't think this was. I think this was a little more daring than people give it credit for.
Totally agree. Just my 2 cents. It has it's grown on me. When I first saw it, I was unsure. I thought it was okay, and the more it's enjoyable. It's got some funny parts in it. I get a little Rocky IV vibes from it with the coming together between neighborhoods and whatnot. I think that's. But I mean, it was a nice little step out, to do something different. And I think the part I found really, really interesting was he based the character off a real Israeli soldier who became a hairstylist. So I thought that was pretty cool. But let's move on to the next one.
Hey, what's up, ladies? Oh, you're from around these parts, eh? Yeah, I'm from Saskatchewan. What's up in Canada, eh? You American ladies, you've been out to Saskatchewan, eh? Those teasers.
Grown Ups 2010, again directed by Dennis Dugan. This movie co-stars Kevin James, Chris Rock, Selma Hayek, Rob Schneider, David Spade, and Maria Bello. This movie had a box office of $271 million on an $80 million budget. This movie is basically making movies with my friends.
Yeah. Basically, yes.
Celebrating getting old.
That's kind of why I love it, right? How many of you guys have boys that you're like, oh man, we should rent a cabin and just hang out for the weekend? We'll go swimming, we'll grill, we'll get drunk. That's what this movie is. I made this movie to bullshit with my friends and get them all paid.
Kind of on this podcast for this exact reason.
I mean, everyone on this podcast spent 4 days together in Vegas. I love this movie. It's probably top 3 Sandler flicks for me. Just for that reason. Now, Sandler has said many times that if Chris Farley was still around, he would have been in this role instead of Kevin James, and the movie would have been completely different, but I still love it. I quote this movie all the time. I got to show this movie to my nephew when he came in to visit me, and it's just, to me, it'll always be special.
I just have 2 words. Selma Hayek.
Oh,
I rest my case.
Oh, Yump.
Yes.
Yump just went from 6 to midnight under the desk.
I was at high noon now.
Yeah, definitely a big plus of this movie. I did find it kind of cool that, as Swole was saying, how he did this movie with his friends, he actually bought all the castmates Maseratis. And, Chris Rock came out and said, I love the fact he bought me a Maserati, but it kind of makes me feel like his bitch. But I think it's cool.
Hey, now let me ask a question. Isn't that what he buys everyone at the end of Mr. Deeds in the town?
No, it's Corvettes.
Maserati?
Corvettes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
also the only, out of all Sandler's movies, he's made a lot of them, the only movie to get a sequel.
Yes. That is true. But I think it's a fun movie. It has its moments, and I'm not a huge fan of it, but I mean, I know why he made it, and it's enjoyable to watch. So when it's on, I won't turn it off.
It's funny how your story changes while you got people watching, because you were talking shit about it in the text message.
Yeah. No, I was talking shit about Grown Ups. I just talked shit to you yesterday because I know you like this movie so much. Since the way you do to me every time I mention Red Hot Chili Peppers, asshole.
You see, subjectivity, guys. Subjectivity. Yeah. It's based on emotion.
Yeah.
But
I might actually love Grown Ups, but not today.
No, I didn't say I loved it. I said I'll watch it. But let's move on to our next one.
Is this a Halloween party? Are you kidding me right now? You got a little more work done, huh? Just a little bit, just a tweaking. Maintenance. I just want to stay in the game, Penny. I don't want to hit home runs, just some singles. That's all. You gotta stop, though. I'm telling you. Do you have any feeling in your face? Just in this one spot right here. And then from the eyebrows down, dead. Is that a car alarm? He's laughing.
Just Go With It, released in 2011, again directed by Dennis Dugan. This movie co-stars Mrs. Aloha, Mr. Hand, Jennifer Aniston, Nicole Kidman, Brooklyn Decker, and Nick Swanson. This movie had a budget of $80 million and made $215 million at the box office. So tell me about Just Go With It.
It's funny. I watched this last night while I was making the PowerPoint after the Florida State game, and like grown-ups, like it's a fun movie. It's a typical Sandler fun movie. Brooklyn Decker and Jennifer Aniston are absolute smoke shows. Like, we don't have to beat around the bush. But once again, Sandler's making movies because he gets to go on exotic trips and the studio pays for it and they make him money, right? We're going to send you to Hawaii, but you're going to make us $100 million. Cool. It's goofy though. I like it. The premise is stupid, but are any Adam Sandler movies, do they have deep philosophical meanings? No.
What about you?
Well, there's one, but
I watched it once. That's about it. This one was just it was a rom-com push. It's again Valentine's Day area. Same as 50 First Dates and I think wasn't Wedding Singer of February too. So you've got Adam Sandler Valentine's Day dates. That was kind of thing.
It works out, right? Because you get to see stupid jokes and you get to take the wife out to a romantic comedy.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't. It's not a total 2-hour suck fest.
No, you watch it once though.
He's helping out guys.
Yeah,
it's not much of a repeat business. It's kind of like it's like in South Park when they go to the musical theater. Go see Just Go With It, just like you're going to see Cats on Broadway. Oh, Sharon.
But he helps guys out because at least you're not stuck watching some horseshit movie like 27 Dresses or whatever the fuck that thing was named.
Hey, I like that movie.
Oops.
Oh my god. I thought it was okay. I've seen it a couple times. Not his best, but I mean it's a good rom-com.
His best movie is the next one. We should just go right to that.
Oh dear.
Oh dear Lord.
Caramel swirl. I know it was you. Everyone wants my Dunkachino. Can't get enough of my Dunkachino. Kids from 7 to 17 lining up for my Dunkachino.
Jack and Jill, 2011. This movie was directed again by Dennis Dugan, co-starring Al Pacino and Katie Holmes. Budget of $79 million and a box office of $149 million. When going through finding sound for this, that was probably the only thing I could find that was actually kind of funny was the whole Al Pacino Dunkachino commercial. This movie is completely like a waste of time. I watched this movie with my dad and he is like, this is the stupidest fucking movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, we barely made it through because it's literally horrible. It's on a lot of top 10 worst movies of all time. I think it's like on the top 10 worst comedies of all time. This movie was just bad to me.
It's bad.
It's awful.
I didn't even see it, to be honest with you.
There's no point in it. It's bad.
Don't even bother.
I have no desire. Yeah.
More things to do with your molecules than this one. Holy
Definitely. It's a total waste of Al Pacino because I think they could have did something really nice with him.
Poor Al. Jack got the good role. Al got the shit one.
Yeah.
That's true.
But I think there's not much you could say about it. It's really bad. Let's move on to the next one.
Stop! They're already.
I think this is another bad one. The next one, if it's what I think it is.
Oh hell yeah!
Maybe you don't remember, but you were basically the worst parent ever.
Me? I did everything for you, buddy, and I never gave you an ounce of shit about nothing.
You never gave me nothing.
I gave you a snake.
Yeah, and then it died after it ate all your Quaaludes.
That was the only time anybody's ever seen a king cobra laugh. And I take pride in that. So fuck you.
2012's That's My Boy, directed by Sean Anders, who also did the Hot Tub Time Machine movies, She's Out of My League, and We're the Millers. Movie co-stars Andy Samberg, Vanilla Ice, Nick Swartzen, Leighton Meester, James Caan, and Susan Sarandon. The movie had a budget of $70 million and made $57 at the box office. Again, this is another movie that I think that I know this is Adam Sandler's first R-rated movie, but it falls short for me. I think the subject matter that he has with, his character and the fact that he has a son so young was just kind of weird, and it's something that definitely couldn't be made today. I think it's a big swing and miss, and I think they even make fun of it on the SNL 30-year anniversary. They make fun of how this movie bombs at the box office. What do you think, Swell?
I love this movie. I think this movie's hilarious. I think the references to growing up in the 80s, like he gets a fucking New Kids on the Block tattoo when he's like a 10-year-old kid, and he grows and the heads warp. Like some of the Vanilla Ice and Todd Bridges in this movie. Like, I think this movie's fucking hilarious, and it's severely underrated in the Parthenon of his filmography. I love this movie.
This is actually a really cool moment too, because this is Andy Samberg 100% credits Adam Sandler as his inspiration. He was actually accused of trying to be a wannabe Adam Sandler early on.
Yeah, I mean, he recorded albums and
he had the same kind of, but Adam Sandler inspired him. And so like the fact that these two this was for me like a home run, just the two of them together on screen together. But the tattoo thing is the funniest thing. He's got a tattoo of Tattoo from Fantasy Island. Like it's insanely stupid funny. Like again, and his characters, it is what it is. It's making fun of obviously the Mary Kay Letourneau thing or whatever, and it's just kind of taking something to create a plot. But
his name is Han Solo Burger.
Yeah, it's like Big Daddy down the line though. Like
right. And he's
All
like,
right.
go. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pete.
No, I was gonna say, I only watched about 10 minutes of this movie and I never came back to it. But I do have a question. You said he has a tattoo of Tattoo. Would that be like Tattoo Inception?
It would be like Tattoo Inception.
It's a paradox, really.
Yeah, it's a riddle wrapped in an enigma.
Pete, you've only seen like 10 minutes of this movie?
Yes.
Dude, you got to do me a favor and watch this movie like from beginning to end. Because I think like if you get past like the goofy, first of all, the first 10 minutes I think are fucking hilarious when he's like trying to seduce his teacher, and he's like, she gives in and she's like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And he's like, I don't know, maybe we could start with some hand jobs. And he's just going like this, right? Once you get past the first 10 minutes, I think this movie will make you fucking laugh your ass off.
Yeah, after the time jump, it's perfect. Like it's
so good. And he does another obnoxious voice, but like he is like Adam Sandler's character in this movie would fit in well in Section 108.
Do you guys think we're gonna ever get a Toll Booth Willie film?
Man, I'm still holding out hope for that one.
That'd be great.
Adam Sandler's character would fit in From the 108 very well.
And Jack, I totally agree with you. This movie, he's like the saving grace of this movie, Vanilla Ice.
Hilarious.
But I did find it funny that Andy Samberg actually invited Adam Sandler to his wedding, and he came dressed up as Donnie. So he was in character the whole time, which he thought was hilarious. But Pete, check it out. To me, it was like a swing and miss. But
Andy Samberg just, and that's a whole nother because you can probably do like at least 3 movies of Andy Samberg that are like great. He's fun.
Oh, definitely. He might be in a future episode sometime. Let's move on to our next one.
I just want to be alone.
Yo, don't believe the hype.
Boy.
Grown Ups 2, released in 2013, again directed by Dennis Dugan, co-starring Kevin James, Chris Rock, Salma Hayek, David Spade, and Maria Bello. This movie had an $80 million budget and had made $247 at the box office. Again, another movie with his friends. The only thing missing from here is Rob Schneider, and I think his wife was pregnant at the time, so his character was kind of written out. Movie's not bad, actually. Another thing, if it's on, I'll watch it. It's just something I'm not gonna go to right away. So tell me how much you love this movie.
I mean, I think like it's not as good as the first movie. The sequels traditionally never are, unless you're The Godfather Part 2 or Aliens. But like, I think that like it's the last day of school. It's the last day, like before summer vacation. And this movie takes place all in the span of that day. They have this 80s themed like costume party, which is super bizarre. But he dresses up like Springsteen, and you have the Hulk, and you have all the weird shit that's going on. And it's just about getting older and hanging out with your boys again. It's fun. If it's on, I'll watch it, but I don't love it as much as the first one.
Pete?
Jackson.
I can't think of anything else to say. Again, it was another case of, hey, let's get the band back together and have some fun. And again, it's not bad, but if I had to choose a movie, Adam Sandler movie to watch, it would definitely be a little lower on the list.
Doesn't this begin his relationship with Taylor Lautner as well? That we would probably like to forget that it ever existed.
Taylor Lautner wasn't here as one of the frat boys that makes him jump off the cliffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wasn't Milo Ventimiglia in this movie too? Like he's like 35 and playing a frat boy.
He was one of those dudes.
Yeah, it's Pete. It's just like you said, it is what it is. Did you like it, Fids?
It was general. This wasn't one. I mean, I'm not as big on the grown up series in general, but nah. I mean, this was a watch. This is one of those watch once, watch twice, maybe. But like, if it's on, I'll keep it on. But it's not a game changer by any means. No,
definitely not. Let's move down to our next one. We're in the home stretch, boys.
The boy has no skills. You schooled by a little girl.
That clip was just for your wife, Swole, because she told me that she likes that part. 2014's Blended, directed by Frank Coraci, co-starring Drew Barrymore, Bella Thorne, Wendy McLendon-Covey. This movie had a budget of $45 million and box office of $128 million. So, Pete, tell me what you think about this movie.
Never saw it. Just never saw it.
Straightforward. I love it.
Yep.
What about you, Swell?
I mean, so this movie, like, obviously, this is my wife's favorite Sandler movie. And as a kid that comes from a divorced home, like, these issues were real, right? Like, getting to know new step siblings and a new stepfather or stepmother. It's a real thing. And I don't think Sandler has experienced it, but he made a movie for those people that had to deal with, like, mixed families like that. And it was pretty cool. Like, I enjoyed it. It's a goofy romantic comedy. And it has some family elements. And once again, he got paid to go to Africa on like a safari with Drew Barrymore. So I'm a fan. And my wife and I went to the theater to see it. But I'm a fan. Yeah.
I mean, this is another example of Adam Sandler trying to inject a little message into like his projects and his art. Yeah. And again, this hit a little bit easier to a target audience, and I think that people that have experienced this looked at this film and like it really was like, oh, like that kind of captured. It's good. It's a happy, again, Frank Capra. Like, it's always you've got the blueprint. There's no reason to go away from it. It's what works. And so
it's not Happy Gilmore. It's not Billy Madison. It's not The Wedding Singer, but it had its target audience, and I enjoyed it. And my wife loves it. We watch it periodically.
I didn't hit it at all. I thought it was good. It was fine.
Yeah, I thought it was okay. This movie's actually Kevin Nealon's favorite of all of his films he ever made. Is this one?
Which I thought was a smoking hot girlfriend in this movie with massive
or whatever.
So you're saying he outkicked his coverage?
Well, his girlfriend's probably like 19 in this movie, and she has just like massive cans. And there's a scene where she just like shakes her cans on the screen. I'm like, okay, cool.
Joel McHale's in that too.
Joel McHale is in that. He plays the same character he plays in every movie, just like a douchebag. Yeah.
But let's move on to the last one we have sound for, boys.
I want you to set up a romantic rendezvous between me, Serena Williams, and Martha Stewart in the Lincoln bedroom.
2015's Pixels. Directed by the great Christopher Columbus, who directed also the Harry Potter films, Home Alone franchise, Miss Doubtfire, and Stepmom, just to name a few. This movie co-stars Kevin James, Peter Dinklage, Michelle Monaghan, and Josh Gad. This movie had a budget of $129 million and a box office of $244 million. I'll start off with this one. This one actually is not a great Sandler film. It has a lot of nostalgia for me because I'm a video game nerd. I do love the fact that you have Tori Iwatani, who's the creator of Pac-Man. He's the guy that actually tries to talk down Pac-Man to be good, and Pac-Man bites off his arm.
Piku piku.
Yeah, which I thought was hilarious. Peter Dinklage, I think, is hilarious in this movie. It's not great, but it's just goofy. It's not. You can tell this movie's not supposed to be taken seriously. His best friend's the fucking president, but it's okay. What do you think, Swell?
Well, he plays like this Geek Squad TV installer, and his best friend's the president. But he was like this like scorned video game guy that got cheated out of a video game championship. It's everything 80s, right? It's like The Wizard meets like
Tron,
the Ghostbusters and Tron, right? Like,
yeah.
Like it kind of meets all those things. It's also like probably one of the more heavy like special effects, graphics intensive movies that like Adam Sandler's ever done. It's goofy. Peter Dinklage is awesome. I love it. I love him in this movie. Like just the way that he talks and the way he dresses, and it's whatever. It is what it is.
Fitz?
This was not one of my favorites. It was, it played on some of the pop culture, video game tropes that, like if you played the games, haha, that's funny. But it wasn't like it wasn't a big one. I wasn't a huge fan of it. It was a little predictable, even if you want to call it that. But it was, again, he's just kind of Sandler's just kind of taking stuff that we know and just kind of repackaging them and playing a little bit of your nostalgia, which he's really good with. He understands what we liked when we were young, and so that's what makes it so more.
What was the box office on this, Yump?
250, I think.
245. 245.
244 close. Fitz. 244.
On a budget of what?
120.
Okay.
That's why they keep pumping. Like they keep giving him money.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You guys put it perfectly. It's okay.
The one thing I'll say about this, to me, it had a definite Tron feel to it, because to me, he was, I don't want to say he was directly trying to make his character like Flynn from Tron, but there was that thing there about, instead of the video game, in Tron, he wrote the video game. In this one, it's the video game championship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they use a lot of like, for nerds that are video game guys, Billy Mitchell was like influential in like the 80s, with Pac-Man and Donkey Kong.
And,
yep. And it came out, recently within the time frame this movie was made, that he was a cheater, and that's who Peter Dinklage plays, is like a smaller Billy Mitchell, which I thought was kind of funny because he kind of looks like him too. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But that's our movies with sound. Now we're gonna get into more serious Sandler movies. I'm just gonna run through them name them off, and then you guys just let me know what you guys think about them. So the first one we have is Spanglish, and this movie was made in 2004, had a budget of 80 million and a box office of 55 million. It was directed by James L. Brooks. Actually, this is the last movie he directed, and it starred Paz Vega, Tia Leone, and Cloris Leachman. Fitz, tell me what you thought about Spanglish.
I thought it was this is like in the same era of when Sandler would actually go and do some art films. So these were away. This was Adam Sandler kind of trying to prove his chops a little bit. And this was a good one. This one was lighthearted. It wasn't super serious, but it also was a great way to kind of bridge a gap and divide and open the eyes of a whole demographic that maybe took certain parts of the other demographics for granted. And I think that Spanglish, Adam Sandler's character, learning to be not such an asshole and so blind to everything is kind of a cool character journey. And again, here's Sandler accepting a role that has deeper meaning than just silly slapstick. And now at this point, he's using subtle humor and things we know as good comedy, as opposed to just the average comedy trope of bodily harm and whatnot. Right. He's actually doing smart comedy now.
What about you, Swell?
I mean, same thing. I don't remember it very, very much. What I do remember was I enjoyed it, and I do remember it was a stretch from, or not a stretch, but like just different from anything that he's done before.
I did go see this at the show, and I remember actually sitting there going, "Hey, you know what? He actually may have some acting chops. He's not, the greatest actor of all time or anything like that, but he's not also just the goofy guy, doing body damage humor and stupid voices. He does. There might be something more there."
Yeah, I totally agree with you. One of the movies that was on this list actually kind of got me in seeing that Adam Sandler can actually act. I do like this movie just for the aspect of Paz Vega's character. I do love the fact that she tells her daughter, like she's very culturally, into her culture, and tells her daughter, she wants her daughter to keep that culture, and that's something that a lot of immigrants that I've talked to, deal with when they come over here. They try to keep their roots, as they say, but like you become Americanized, but still keep where you came from. I thought that was kind of a nice message in this movie. The next one we're going to get to is The Cobbler, and this movie was made in 2014, directed by Tim McCarthy, who also directed Spotlight after this to win Oscars, co-starring Method Man, Malone Diaz, and Steve Buscemi. This had a box office of $6.5 million on a $10 million budget. Now, I had never seen this movie.
Neither
Swole,
have I.
tell me about. Try to sell this to us, Swole.
It's kind of a depressing movie. Like I've only seen it the one time. I remember really, really being impressed by the way Method Man can act. He's been in a couple of movies that I really, really love. Garden State being one of them. But I remember it being like super kind of depressing and not like in like a Punch Drunk Love type of way.
Yeah, he went period piece with this. I mean, he was just he's trying to stretch. He's stretching himself. That's what he's trying to do here with and Tom McCarthy. He's got Ellen Barkin, right? And obviously Buscemi's in there, which is great. But I mean, he's stretching himself here, and this is again 1903, so this is a very different Adam Sandler just in general, having to play this type of role. He's pushing.
Yeah. The next one, probably, which is the most he got more critically acclaimed for, is Uncut Gems. This movie was released in 2019, directed by the Safdie brothers, Benny and Josh. His co-star is Kevin Garnett, which I thought was hilarious. Eric Boston, Julia Fox, and Dana Menzel, and Lakeith Stanford. This movie had a budget of $19 million and made $50 million at the box office. This is peak Sandler, in my opinion. He does a great role. I think he was robbed for not getting nominated for the Oscar for this.
He should have won.
Yeah,
Yes,
I think
I totally agree.
This is if you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend you guys check this one out.
And the thing I like about this movie the most, he plays a reprehensible person. It is not like in Spanglish, for example, he's still, he may not be the best person in the world, but
He
he's
has
still
redeeming qualities, though.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Here, he's a fucking scumbag.
None.
And this is also the Safdie brothers too. Their anxiety cinema is such a cool cinematic technique. If you've not seen Good Times is another film they did that's really good, and they really have nailed the idea of creating anxiety within the audience. I felt like I was on eggshells this whole film, and the ending is a lot.
It's like gut wrenching.
Yeah, and this film though, the whole time you feel like you're almost there. Like they're almost in the clear. They almost are going to make the right decision. The right choice, the right decision, whatever. And it's just out of reach. Always out of reach, and it creates anxiety with you as an audience. It's brilliant. It's again, Good Times. If you've never seen Good Times with Robert Pattinson, also fantastic. Worth a look too if you haven't seen that before.
So I didn't see Good Times until I saw this. I went back and watched Good Times, and when you call it anxiety cinema, that's probably the most perfect description that you can give to two movies like this, because you're sitting on the edge of your seat and you're like, don't do that, or and the way that they use music in the score gives you anxiety. It's almost like the Kronos Quartet in Requiem for a Dream. It's just fantastic stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. The next one we're gonna move on to is Reign Over Me. This movie was made 2007. It was directed by Mike Binder, who also directed Blank Man, which is a hilarious movie. Co-starring Don Cheadle, Jada Pinkett Smith, Donald Sutherland, and Liv Tyler. Now, I never seen this movie. From what I've seen of previews and trailers, it kind of reminds me of a Robert Downey Jr. Jamie Foxx movie. But I've never seen it. What do you think about it? Well,
I mean, so this is one of the first movies to like openly address September 11th, and Adam Sandler is. I don't want to call him. I don't want to call him autistic. He's grieving for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't want to call him autistic. But he has like this photographic memory of albums and music, and he talks about albums in a way that most people wouldn't understand. I think this movie is fantastic. I thought his performance and Don Cheadle's performance was absolutely like brilliant. There's a few Bruce Springsteen references in here, which is always like a big deal, like for me and my family, because like we're massive like Bruce fans. And I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and it broke my heart a little bit.
It's got early work of B.J. Novak, by the way, which is great. And if you're unfamiliar with B.J. Novak, he wrote quite a few or directed quite a few episodes of The Office. But his new film Vengeance is actually on Peacock now. If you've not seen it, it's worth a look too. By the way, side note. But this is a good one. This is again Adam Sandler touching on the 9/11. This is one of the first films, like you said, that really kind of touched on the trauma. And his character is broken, and it's a known story, I think, with people, and I think this is a life imitating art more than art imitating. No, this is more art imitating life more than life imitating art. And so, it's Adam Sandler's. He's felt something in this, and there's a lot of heart in this one.
Pete, what about you?
Yeah, I really can't add anything on top of what's already been said. It is sort of a hard watch because everyone knows the events that led up to this, if you will. So it is a hard watch, and it is, and it is depressing in a lot of ways. So generally it's like, it's not what you would link Adam Sandler to. I don't care what anyone says. Adam Sandler will always be like Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison to me, and everything else. And in a role like this, it's like, in some respects, for me, until Uncut Gems, it was hard to correlate him in this kind of role.
Yeah, the hard part is the dude can fucking act.
That's it. And Uncut Gems, if you haven't seen it yet, watch it. Because if you have any questions about whether or not he can act, he fucking answers them and then some in Uncut Gems.
Dude can act, and when dude takes his time and picks a script that has like depth to it, like he is one of the best. I'm disappointed that he was not nominated and won for Uncut Gems.
Guys, drama's easy, comedy's hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't believe that, but it's absolutely true.
Absolutely.
Oh, I could totally
because
see that.
comedy's so driven on timing, and timing and delivery. You got to have the timing and delivery.
And a lot of great comedy is built off trauma. Like trauma is as therapy
and life experience. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and this is the next movie that we're going to talk about, which is Punch Drunk Love, which was released in 2002 and directed by the great Paul Thomas Anderson, who also directed movies such as There Will Be Blood, Boogie Nights, Magnolia, The Master, and Licorice Pizza. Co-starring Emily Watson, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Mary Lynn Roxburgh, and Luis Guzman. This movie had a budget of $25 million and made a box office of $24 million. This is the movie that I think Adam Sandler steps out of his shell because it's not a comedic role. It's with a serious director, and he really shows his acting chops. And for those who don't know, Adam Sandler was studied under Prestige. I think he's Lee Strasberg, right? He studied under him or graduated from Lee Strasberg.
Yeah.
He graduated under his school of drama. And that's a lot of great actors come out of there. Like John Leguizamo was a graduate of that. He really shows his acting chops in this movie, and this is the movie that people started taking him seriously as an actor. I love this movie personally. I think that he plays the great character of having being basically shit on everybody in his family, and kind of like losing his cool and going ape shit. And it's a love story, but it's so much more. It's one of my favorites of his. What do you think, Swell?
I mean, I agree. And unless the movie is Magnolia, then it's a Paul Thomas Anderson movie I love, right? So, he gets taken advantage of in this movie, and it's Paul Thomas Anderson, so the music is fantastic, or the score is fantastic, and it really was like Spanglish came first, right? But like
no, this came first, then Spanglish.
Before Spanglish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But
this came first.
This was like fuck
Oh,
you.
two.
I'm not just Happy Gilmore.
Right.
And here's the funny part too. This film was a test. Paul Thomas Anderson wanted to challenge himself. Magnolia was a kind of a longer film, and so he determined to make his next film 90 minutes, and so that's what this film became, was his 90-minute film. He decided he wanted to challenge himself within the parameters of a romantic comedy inside of 90 minutes, which is not his style. If you've seen any of his films, they're never going to be 90 minutes. So.
And just to like show how Adam Sandler was perceived, Paul Thomas Anderson at his press conference of Magnolia, they asked him what's the next film he wanted to make, and he said, "I want to make a comedy with Adam Sandler," and everybody started laughing.
Mm-hmm.
But Adam Sandler basically like made him eat shit burgers, as Lou Brown would say.
Yeah,
the Denise show. That's what his character was inspired by. Actually, when he wrote it, he wrote it with Emily Watson in mind, and he wrote it with the Denise show, legitimately that character as his inspiration. So the fits of rage that Adam Sandler was so known for in his like slapstick comedies can now be used as more of an acting tool to showcase someone with real legitimate angst in a real life scenario, not something like in a slapstick environment.
And with this movie, I did not see it when it first came out. I didn't watch it until years later, long after I had saw Spanglish. And because at the time, I will admit, I'm like, what? Adam Sandler trying to be somewhat like in a serious type of role with a serious type of director? Give me a fucking break. And then I just remember reading a story about it where Roger Ebert gave it a very good review and was impressed by it. And the reason the story stands out is because Adam Sandler's mother then said, "Oh, I can go back to reading Mr. Ebert now because all he did for years was rip on my son."
It debuted at Cannes in 2002. So in May, it was a Cannes Film Festival release. So it went through the art circuit pretty well.
Yeah, and the last film and this long journey we're going to talk about is Funny People. This film was released in 2009. Is directed by Judd Apatow, who also did This Is 40, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, Trainwreck, Knocked Up, and King of Staten Island. This movie stars Seth Rogen, Leslie Mann, Eric Bana, Jonah Hill, and Jason Schwartzman. The movie had a budget of $75 million and a box office of 71.6. This is actually my second favorite Sandler movie. And the reason being is because he combines both of his talents as a comedic actor and as a serious actor. If you haven't seen this movie, I'm going to spoil it a little bit. His character is basically given I believe has cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically about finding his own morality and trying to make up for mistakes he made past in his life. His life. He's a stand-up comedian, and he kind of takes Seth Rogen's character as his
protege, if you would.
Yeah, as his protege. I don't think it falls apart halfway through.
Yeah,
I think
we need to talk about this comment.
Mm-hmm.
Funny People had the potential to be tremendous, but like all Apatow movies, falls apart.
No, I don't agree with that.
I disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think it had
there's
a lot of
shitty takes, and then there's Brian's shitty takes. So,
but to talk about the funny parts of the movie,
Brian, I'm glad your windbreaker got stolen the other day.
How the hell could wait? How could that windbreaker be stolen? I saw him wearing the fucking thing on Saturday, and there was no way without killing him anyone was getting it off his body.
I think it might have been an extra one that he got for his nephew.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not really glad that it got stolen, Brian, but I had to bust your balls a little bit. I love Apatow movies. Like, there's nothing you can tell me about Judd Apatow.
Well,
and I'll just say this: 40-Year-Old Virgin gets better as the movie goes on.
Absolutely.
It does not fall apart.
Well, just the beginning of this movie is hilarious when they're doing the prank phone calls. Like, of him and Judd Apatow. That's like literally them during their college years of Adam Sandler doing the prank phone calls. But I thought it was hilarious.
Jason
this movie.
Jason Schwartzman also scored that film.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Music by Jason Schwartzman.
You mean he could be the Godfather, like
Correct.
Jason Schwartzman.
Mm-hmm.
And for this movie, Sandler turned down the role of Donnie in Inglourious Bastards.
I remember when that happened, and when he was supposed to work with Quentin Tarantino, and it just never happened.
Yeah, but I like this movie a lot.
I do too. I like it. I wish that I could see, what was it called, Merman? I wish that was a real movie.
Look at this cast too. Look at this cast of comedic actors: Adam Sandler, obviously, Seth Rogen, Leslie Mann, Apatow's wife, Eric Bana, Jonah Hill, Jason Schwartzman, Aubrey Plaza, who's amazing, Maude Apatow, who's now blowing up, or Iris Apatow. One of them are getting
Eminem,
Aziz Ansari, RZA, Torsten Vogt. I mean, this is a good cast.
Ray Romano makes an appearance.
So David Tell, Paul Reiser, Ray Romano.
It was basically an homage to stand-up comedy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I love it.
Wonderful. It's a wonderful film. It's a fun film. It's a good. This is a well-rounded Apatow film, and I don't think that it dies halfway through. I think that it finishes actually pretty well.
I also think Yump described it perfectly. It's Sandler taking the comedic elements and his dramatic elements and kind of interweaving them, like Pauly Shore would say. And I think it's a really, really good movie.
Yeah. But with that, guys,
I'm still stuck on Adam Sandler playing Donnie in Inglourious Bastards.
Right?
I never heard that. I'm stuck now.
Well,
I think that's a whole episode that we could do at some point. Roles that famous people have passed on. Like, we could talk about Will Smith not being Neo, like Adam Sandler. Like, we could do a whole episode on that shit.
That's the stuff you get on White Sox Twitter's #1 movie podcast, man.
White Sox Twitter's #1 movie podcast. No questions asked. Also, the original podcast for movies of White Sox Twitter.
Since 2009.
Except no imitations. I just hooked you up with some knowledge, boys.
No, but that's all the Adam Sandler movies that we can go through. I feel like I just birthed Adam Sandler with all these damn movies. I know this is a long episode, but thank you guys so much for coming on.
Appreciate
Pete,
it.
Fizz,
Absolutely.
We wouldn't be here without you guys. So guys, please stick around. The Tainted Glove's gonna run right after me and Swole finish up, and me and Swole will be on that show as well.
I pee. I gotta pee before we
yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
we're gonna take a little bio break, and then we'll be back.
Yeah. But thanks, guys. We'll see you in a little bit.
Thanks for having us on.
Thanks, guys.
Mr. Swole, let's move on to our coming soon, my friend. Want to let everybody know what's coming soon?
Yeah. So what is it? Next Monday or whatever is October 1st, our favorite month. We're going to be doing some. Let's go back to Zohan. No, that ship has sailed, my friend. We're going to do a horror movie episode. We're finally going to get to attack one of our favorite genres. And what's our focus going to be, Yump?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Nightmare on Elm Street, which is a fantastic series. Yump has worked on some really cool special stuff. So that's what's coming up.
Yep. So look forward to that, guys. And before we go to Swole's final thought, I just want to thank everybody who was hanged out in the comments. I know this is a long one, but Mailman Jack, Brian, Jackie, thank you guys so much for coming in here and commenting. Check us out at thetaintedglove.com. Of course, you're watching this on the YouTube channel, but if you haven't watched us on the YouTube, check us out at the Tainted Glove YouTube and our Twitter handles at the Tainted Glove and at Yumper and Swole. And with that, guys, thank you so much for listening and watching. And let's pull it over to Swole's final thought.
Look at that handsome bastard. It's been a busy couple weeks for me. We had iPhone launch. I just want to tell you how grateful I am for all you guys for listening to the pod, for interacting with the Twitter handle, for just having fun, goofing around with us and interacting. We love all of you guys. We are White Sox Twitter's #1 movie podcast, and we love being around you guys. So you won't see any fake stuff here. We'll never get banned on Twitter. We love all you guys. That's it. Deuces.